of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. And we will begin our commission meeting. We have a presentation this morning from our water conservation, which is increasingly important for all of us, not only monetarily, but just in terms of social responsibility as we grow dramatically within our area. And so Bill Anderson, who is our director of our water utilities, and Brittany Thornton from our conservation specialist will make the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
My pleasure. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for having us here this morning. As we continue to plan for the responsible utilization of our water resources, water conservation has been and will continue to be part of that equation. One of the key metrics that we use to measure, if you will, water conservation is the gallons per capita per day metric. Right now, our current water use permit allows for 150 gallons per capita per day. However, as you can see, our trend continues to decline. Right now, we're hovering around 118, 122 gallons per capita per day. But again, the hope is that'll continue to decline. For more details about our water conservation program, we've talked about this for a number of years now, but we wanted to come before you and explain just what we are doing and what we plan to do in the future regarding water conservation. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Brittany Thornton, who is our water conservation specialist. Brittany?
Morning, Brittany.
Good morning. So I am extremely excited to be here with you guys, and thank you, Bill, for the introduction. I am the city's water conservation specialist. I actually was hired on just a year ago in June, so I'm fairly new to the position. Prior to this, I was a teacher for 10 years in agriculture, so that kind of started my love for water because obviously we need that for that. But then also growing up, I was always on the water with my grandmother fishing. So I've had a very long love of water, I guess you could say. So I'm very happy to be here today and talk to you guys about our current water situation and what we're doing for conservation purposes. So if you take a look on the screen, you do see a pool there. This is to help you visualize how much water we do pump every day. So 23 million gallons per day is the amount of water Lakeland currently pumps. If you were to take a football-sized field, the lengthwise, and lay it on top of that pool, that kind of gives you a visual and times that by 23. So that's a lot of water. Currently, we have a water use permit that SwiftMud provides us to allow us to pump this amount of water. This permit does require us to have a conservation program, but it also helps us with making sure that we don't harm the environment by pumping all this water, make sure that we have enough water later on, and just make sure that the quality of the water and the existing users all have enough. So where our water comes from, most of you probably are aware, but it comes from underground in the upper Floridan aquifer. We do pump this water out via 19 different wells located throughout Lakeland. As you know, we're looking at and researching alternative water sources, and if you look on that diagram, that lower aquifer is what we're currently looking at, but the most important and cheapest and easiest way we can ensure we have water for the future is through conservation. So please keep that in mind. You know, while we are researching those alternatives, we do need to focus on conservation. So as mentioned, we do have a water use permit. Our conservation program and report gets updated annually. And you can see on the screen, there's a bunch of different programs and activities that we do. And this is all found in that report. And we're gonna go over all of those today. So, and one last note, our current water use permit is good through 2038. So we've got a good while, but again, need to keep in mind our conservation. So metering is one of the most important things that we do. This measures that amount of water that goes from the supply side to the customer side. This helps basically provide the data to get our the metric that Bill mentioned earlier, the gallons per capita per day. So this also helps us determine if there's any kind of water wasting going on throughout our distribution system. We can kind of compare how much we pump to how much is going through those meters. This also, so you can see on the screen, this is Chris Ritchie. He is a water meter tech or water meter repair too. He is currently standing at the test bench. This is the test bench that we use to put all of our meters on to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. This test bench can actually hold up to 10 small residential meters, all the way up to those larger meters that you guys may have seen. So this is something we regularly do throughout the year, all the time, just making sure that our meters are up to date and doing what they're supposed to be doing. As we move forward, the technology is actually advancing really well. And we plan on hopefully one day being able to tell customers or show customers, hey, these certain activities are using this much water. So definitely excited for the future there. Another good program that we have is our reuse. You can see there's a flow chart there that kind of highlights how it works, but our wastewater goes to some treatment plants, it gets pre-treated, it goes on to industrial reuse places such as TECO. You can see the picture on the left there. That is a picture of a pump, and then also the cooling towers that use this reuse water. Our reuse is only industrial, but you can see 9.4 million gallons per day is how much we're reusing. So typically those cooling towers would otherwise be using our potable water, so 9.4 million gallons is what we're saving in a sense because we're using reuse instead of potable. And once that water goes, all of our wastewater goes to the 7 wetlands for further treatment. It's a really natural process, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with that as well. But it pulls all the nitrates and all the nutrients and things out of the water for us. So that's also part of our reuse program. So, did you know we have a year-round irrigation schedule? Most people don't, unfortunately. So it's something that no matter what your source of water is, whether it's a well, whether it's a public supply, it's all on the same schedule. So if you have an even address, you're supposed to be watering Thursday and Sunday. If you have an odd address, you're supposed to water Wednesday and Saturday. And there are a few variances out there depending on who you are and what you have going on. So if there's ever any kind of question, please call me. I am more than happy to talk you through it and figure it out. But no matter what, never water in between the hours of 10 and 4. That is when the evaporation is wasting the most water. So always before 10 or after 4 and on those 2 days. Another huge part of this is our public outreach and education. Bill's going to speak to this a little bit later on, but getting out there and letting our community know, this is what you guys are supposed to be doing. Whoops. This is what you can help us do. We participate with Polk County Schools. We do the Great American Teach-In, Teacher Contact Day at the beginning of the school year, and our Tinker program most people aren't familiar with, but this is where we have a 5th grade curriculum given to the teachers, and they give the 5th graders a water conservation lesson, actually multiple lessons. At the end of the program, the kids receive a conservation kit. They take it home, they get it installed, and then this program actually collects data to help show the water savings through that. So it's a really awesome program that we do. And then also getting out there into these local community events. This past weekend, we were at the boat race downtown, or at Lake Hollingsworth. We've also done Snowfest and things like that. And then again, working with communications, just trying to up our social media presence as much as possible. So you may see Water Wednesday post pretty periodically, and then also our Florida Friendly program that we try to promote through that as well. And so partnerships, you guys are familiar with the first 2 up there, PRWC. I am an active team member of their conservation team. We also obviously work with SwiftMud. And then Polk County School Water Academy is a newer one that we're working with. And then University of Florida's IFAS program, Florida Friendly, I just mentioned that. we do a monthly lunch and learn with them, and this past month, or actually this month, we had our most attendance with 40+ people. So it's a really good program to get people learning about that and how that helps save water. And then in conjunction, this month, you see explorations up there in the Future Florida Children's Museum. We're very close with them. We're gonna actually bring the two together and do a pollinator workshop with the kids. So you're gonna have UF at explorations with me, and we're gonna promote water conservation and pollinators all at the same time. It's gonna be really cool. So I look forward to working with explorations as we move forward, and they move forward in their new venture. All right, so one of the biggest parts that I do on a regular basis is promote these rebates and these different programs. Toilet rebate program is basically we're replacing those 3.5 gallon per flush toilets, which were manufactured prior to 1994. So if you have one of those toilets, I want to help you get it replaced. There's a $100 incentive to do that, and you do have to replace it with a WaterSense labeled 1.28 gallon per flush. Conservation kits we give out to the community for free. These include water efficient shower heads, sink aerators, and a whole bunch of different information to help you or help the consumers save water. And as mentioned previously, the irrigation is probably our biggest water waster. And so this landscape and irrigation evaluation, our rain sensor check, and then also our smart irrigation controller rebate are all three programs, very, very important, that are gonna help us save the most water. So those you do have to pre-qualify for, but please contact me. I will see what I can do, and if I can't get our contractor to come out to you, I can always come out and help you as much as possible as well. So, and then the last one up there, the WISE program, this is more so for our larger businesses or like HOAs, people or groups that have large areas that need some revamping. There's funding out there that can help them replace irrigation systems, possibly install like a weather station, things of that nature. So again, any of those programs or rebates that you're interested in, you can visit the website there, lakelandgov.net/rebate, or you can just call me and we can discuss them. And then one last activity that we are continuing is our residential inverted block rates. So this is going through fiscal year 24. Most of you are somewhat familiar with this, but basically our first tier, you see there is 0 gallons to 7,000 gallons. This is an example of the smallest residential accounts. Basically that rate stayed the same. We don't want to raise that because we want affordability. But those higher tiers, the more water you use, the more that rate increases to help people realize, oh, I need to back off on how much water I'm using. So that is the inverted block rate for residential. And in the past couple of years, we have done or received several awards. You can see the 2020 Water Conservation Award for Excellence, Best in Class, the 2020 Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, and then just this year, the Water Reuse Community Water Champion Award. And I'm hoping moving forward, as I get more time here, I get to help and receive some of these awards and more awards, in fact. So speaking of the future, I'm going to hand it back over to Bill to discuss that.
Thank you.
Hello, Bill Anderson again, Director of Water Utilities. So as we talk about water conservation and look toward the future, we have several things that we're looking to do. One of them, the first one, we have a position, Community Engagement Coordinator. That position is specifically designed to get out in the community, talk water conservation, tell our story. That position is posted right now, and we hope to fill that very soon. Also working with Kevin and his team over in communications, we really want to engage in a marketing program. Again, it's all about communication. Tell our story both internally and externally, and we're hoping to have some sort of mascot, if you will, similar to what you've seen with Lakes and Stormwater and their Toby's Water Warriors. Also, over the next few months, I hope to bring before you for your consideration a Water Star Ordinance. This is a program for new development, both residential and commercial, working with the Water Management District to further encourage water conservation. And so with that, I want to leave you with one thought, and that is water conservation isn't about using less. It's about wasting less.
Oh, that's good.
So with that concludes our presentation. Both Brittany and I stand for questions.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Anderson, I see where you are planning to have these different outreach kind of meetings to make sure that we get the water conservation message to our citizens, but I didn't see anything about our neighborhood association groups, because now that they're back in person meeting, you can hit a lot of people like that, and I encourage that we should do that.
I fully agree, sir, absolutely, and that's what this position is designed to do, is to get out, meet with HOAs, meet with neighborhood community organizations, and tell the story.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the information as well today.
On your very first slide that you showed, which was the reduction of the water utilization over the last probably 2 decades, how does that rank compared to those around us within the state? Any comments there?
Honestly, I don't know. However, we haven't done that comparative analysis. Talking with other utility directors here in the county, not statewide, but here in the county, it's comparable, I think. Honestly, I think we're doing a little bit better than those communities, primarily because of this young lady behind us. We have a conservation program. Some of the smaller communities do not. They just simply can't afford it. They are partnering with PRWC on some of those things. But again, because of Brittany and the work she does, we have that in-house. So again, looking in Polk County, talking with some of those other utilities, I think we're doing better than most.
Good. Well, when I look at this, it's very, very encouraging to see what we can accomplish with intentionality, and there's more that can be accomplished. I was speaking with a citizen last night via email, back and forth, who was very concerned about water conservation and the rate increases that will be anticipatable from PRWC when we get all of those networkings done together, which are delayed from the present time, but will become a reality in the future. And the importance from his perspective that we were working hard on water conservation. And so to me, this is pretty material that we show and reflect what we're doing. We don't want to have to pay more for water. We know that when we pay for things, we are more conservative in the way that we use them. But the cost of going to that deep aquifer later will be more expensive. And so there will be shared costs and shared increases ahead as we go forward. But it's also part of the smart growth that we have to do in our area. And it takes 8 to 10 years to dig those wells. So it's not something you decide, oh, well, let's add more water and let's go deeper. You have to do that work well in advance. Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bill. And just following up on this chart, so looking at the trend decreasing over the years, but since 2018, that trend looks like it's going back up. And I would guess that's due to the growth that we're seeing in the community, or just would be curious your thoughts on that.
So my thoughts, first of all, this water usage, gallons per capita per day, is highly dependent on environmental conditions, rainfall or lack thereof. And so a couple of those years, we did have slightly less than average rainfall, so people are irrigating more. One thing we don't have the data on, but we're kind of guessing on this, with the impacts of COVID, and a lot of people were staying home. Were they gardening? Were they irrigating? Were they doing yard work? All those types of things would certainly add to this metric. So while we don't have any hard data, we are making that assumption that that is part of that reason. Okay. And as you can see, long term, there have been times where it dips, goes back up, dips. Yeah. Again, highly variable, highly dependent on rainfall or lack thereof.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else, sir? Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bill. And Brittany, it was so nice to meet you this morning. I just was curious about, this is certainly the big picture. Going forward, if Brittany will be able to show us some specific benchmarking with, things like how many toilets have been replaced and how many smart meters have been engaged and how many people have changed their water habits with irrigation.
Yes, ma'am. So one thing to point out also with this, I obviously didn't get hired on until about a year ago. So there's a time period, actually those 3 years, 2.5 years, we didn't have a water conservation specialist. So that I think kind of adds a little bit to that. But as far as metrics, I do have an extra slide up here to kind of show. So speaking with SwiftMud, this is kind of the data that they have gathered as far as for every toilet rebate implementation, we can say we save 20 gallons per day. So up to this point in the past year, I've done about 60 of those. So that can kind of equate to a lot of water because it is per day. But I am keeping track of, the number of implementations, the landscape and irrigation evaluation, the outdoor programs, basically. I'm just now getting those kind of pushed out more. So you can see those are more of your water saving programs. But I am definitely keeping track of all those customer contacts and trying to keep up with the data as far as what their usage was, what it will be, what it is now, and hopefully in the future what it is. And hiring another person will definitely help, because right now I'm kind of split between a lot of different things. But hopefully with that, that'll help me be able to keep track of the data better as well. So, but yes, we are tracking all of that as best as we can.
Thank you. And it's just great to see your excitement. Can you tell in her face that she's excited about her position and really making a difference? So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And last, at the agenda study, actually, Commissioner Madden sang us the little toothpaste song.
Yes, I
I don't know
did.
if you want to do that again.
When you're brushing your teeth and having so much fun, you never leave the water on. I mean, I was talking about how, you watch these children's shows, and having 6 children, it was like on auto repeat for years and years. So, but it still sings to me as I'm brushing my teeth. And so I said, I hope we're going to have some songs so we can brainwash our citizens into being more conservation focused.
Yes, and the kids definitely do have that impact on the adults, so trying to reach out to them as well is key, so.
And it works, makes a difference. Thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Teeth and sing at the same time.
Any other comments by Commissioner?
As I'm brushing.
All right, seeing and thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Thank you.
We're going to now move to proclamations. And we have several proclamations today, so we encourage your patience as we go through this. We will begin on the proclamation with Community Action Month 2022, and here to receive that proclamation is Pei Hao Li Yang, who is the Economic Services Senior Manager of the Agricultural and Labor Program in Polk County. And we'll also get a picture at the very end, too, of you. So I'll just go ahead and read the proclamation, and thank you for joining us this morning. Whereas Community Action has made essential contributions to individuals and families across the nation by creating economic opportunities and strengthening communities, and whereas Community Action is a robust state and local force connecting people to life-changing services and creating pathways to prosperity in 99% of all American counties, and whereas Community Action builds and promotes economic stability as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities and stable homes, and whereas Community Action promotes community-wide solutions to challenges throughout our cities, states, and suburbs, whereas Community Action delivers innovative services that create greater opportunities for families and children to succeed, and whereas Community Action insists on community participation and involvement, ensuring that all sectors of the community have a voice and will be heard, and whereas Community Action is celebrating 58 years of innovation, impact, and providing proven results for Americans, I therefore H. William Mutz, City Mayor of Lakeland, and on behalf of the Lakeland Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Community Action Month in the City of Lakeland. And you might want to just make some round out comments for us.
Thank you, Mayor Mutz and Commissioners, for this proclamation for us. We have been serving the community, our agency has, as far as community action, for over 50-plus years. And we're just so thankful for the continued support from the city, and also that we've been serving a lot of low-income families or children's with almost about $1 million in Lakeland. We've been doing a lot in the community. We also love to go out in the community, reach out, and provide the services that is needed in the community. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you. We'll take a quick picture here.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to celebrate Small Business Week 2022. Do we have any Small Business Week representatives here? Okay, and that's in fairness to them. They weren't certain that they could come. I nonetheless want to read the proclamation. Whereas America's most substantial economic growth during the past 40 years has been driven by the resilience of our small businesses who, despite a worldwide pandemic, continue to pioneer innovative solutions for our country's most significant challenges and create opportunities for families and workers. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, to the small manufacturers driving our competitiveness on the global stage, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And we are a big believer of that in this city. And whereas when we support small businesses, we each help to create jobs that, in turn, equip our local communities to preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 32.5 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, 2/3, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other governmental agencies, and whereas Lakeland supports and joins in this national effort to help create small businesses do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, ensure that our local communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, H. William Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, and on behalf of its commission, do hereby proclaim May 16th through May 20th as Lakeland's celebration of National Small Business Week in the City of Lakeland. And so I will just hold that up. Thank you, sir. And we'll get that to them. And on a more sobering note, we have Lupus Awareness Month 2022, and here to receive that proclamation is Jiwa Farrell, volunteer advocate and patient with the Lupus Research Alliance, and family, Sharon Hendon, her mother, and James Farrell, husband. So come on up. Farrell's here. All right. Well, I'll do this with you as well. Okay. Whereas lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease in which the immune system inexplicably and randomly attacks the body's own tissues and vital organs, including the kidneys, the brain, the heart, the lungs, blood, skin, and joints. It is a leading cause of premature cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, and stroke among young women. And whereas lupus directly affects millions worldwide, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, estimates suggest 322,000 Americans have definite or probable SLE. Lupus is 2 to 3 times more common, and its symptoms tend to be more severe among African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, Native Americans, and Asians than Caucasians. 90% of the people who have lupus are women, typically diagnosed during childbearing years, ages 15 through 44. And whereas lupus is one of the most difficult diseases to diagnose because its symptoms come and go, and they mimic those of other diseases, and there's no single test that can definitively identify the illness, yet early diagnosis and treatment usually lessens the progression and severity of the disease and are vital to preserving health and preventing further complications, organ damage, and death. And whereas many healthcare professionals are unaware of the symptoms and health effects of lupus, causing people with lupus to suffer for many years before obtaining a correct diagnosis and medical treatment, demonstrating the need for increased public and professional awareness of lupus. Increasing public awareness and focusing public attention on lupus and its devastating impact on patients' lives will provide hope for a better future for those affected. And whereas the Lupus Research Alliance works to raise awareness of the signs and symptoms of lupus and to promote education, research, social support, and quality medical care for our citizens who live with or care for someone who struggles with the disease, this month, let us recommit ourselves to supporting the research that will lead to better targeted treatments and a cure for this devastating illness that affects so many women in the prime of their lives. Now, therefore, I, William Mudd, City of Lakeland Mayor, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Lupus Awareness Month. In witness thereof, I have attached my seal. So here you go. And this one is fun. This is Mayor's Monarch Pledge Day 2022, and here to receive the proclamation is Stacy Smith, Parks and Recreation Grounds Maintenance Supervisor, Kevin Polk, Amanda James, Eric Bell, Grounds Maintenance Supervisors, and Bill Cohen, the Horticultural Specialist of the City of Lakeland. For all of those that are in here, come on up. And these are the people that make your city look so beautiful, okay? Just awesome. So this is just one little nuance of what you guys are pursuing, and it's very, very complicated, but I'll read through it. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generational metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans, and whereas to help save the monarch butterfly, the City of Lakeland will play a leadership role by committing to facilitate the preservation of habitats that support the monarch butterfly's migration across North America. And whereas Lakeland prides itself in having an urban forest consisting of 65,000 plus trees, as well as 76 park facilities, including Hollis Gardens. I just love that paragraph so much I'm going to read it again. Whereas Lakeland prides itself in having an urban forest consisting of 65,000 plus trees, as well as 76 park facilities, including Hollis Gardens. And whereas Hollis Gardens, Lakeland's downtown botanical display garden, is a certified butterfly garden with the North American Butterfly Association, and many other park areas throughout the city provide plantings that create habitats for monarch butterflies and other pollinators. And whereas Lakeland, Florida has committed to saving the monarch butterfly and other pollinators by signing the Mayor's Monarch Pledge and looks forward to engaging residents in building more pollinator habitats throughout the city. And whereas citizens can help make a difference by planting milkweed and other native nectar plants and educating themselves about monarch and native pollinator conservation, whereas the mayor, elected officials, and government executives are encouraged to sign the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge to help foster monarch butterfly conservation, which we've done several years ago. Now, therefore, I, H. William Mudd, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, do hereby proclaim May 16th, 2022 as Mayor's Monarch Pledge Day. In witness thereof, I attach my seal. And Stacy Smith is going to let you recognize, give you a little touch of how complicated this whole process is and why.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, everyone's seen the videos of how the monarchs gather down in South America at a certain part of the year, and they cover the trees. There's so many of them. Those populations have been dwindling for years now. And what we're going to do, since the mayor and the city has taken the pledge, is we're going to start growing at least 4 of the 21 native Florida milkweeds. Now, the one that most people grow is a Mexican species. We're going to start promoting the native species that we really should be growing here in Florida. And Kevin here at Hollis Garden, he's going to be displaying those plants in Hollis Garden. The landscape crew with Eric here is going to be putting those plants out into the city landscape. Bill at the city nursery, he's going to be helping with the seed production and growing these native milkweeds so we can plant them out into the landscape. We've also been in contact with 7 wetlands and different areas of the city. Crago Park, they're willing to donate areas dedicated to those plants. And we'll do everything we can to help the monarch population, at least in our local area. And mayors all over the United States have taken this pledge, so hopefully we can have an impact on the monarch population.
Tie a little bit into the Arboretum as well.
Well, the Arboretum, which is a different subject,
but it's a total different subject. Nonetheless, this is also very layered.
If you're not aware, the City of Lakeland is an international arboretum, And it started with the flowering tree collection on Lake Morton. And those trees do attract pollinators and butterflies. That collection has been mapped out on an ArcGIS program. If you go down to Lake Morton, you can find a little sign with a QR code on it and scan it with your cell phone and actually walk around the lake and read about each one of those flowering trees, where they come from, all the statistics and everything you might want to know about them. Hollis Garden is the fruit tree collection, which is part of the citywide Arboretum. And we'll be working on the palm collection in the near future on Lake Wire. And eventually, we hope to have a native tree collection at Crago Park and Lake Parker Park. So those are the things we're working on in that arena.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. You hold this, sir, and we will take a picture. Tighten up a little bit. Thank you all very much for coming back. Now we are going to go to National Safe Boating Week. Stacy, I have a second one of those too, if you want one before you leave, a second copy of that. I failed to give you. Okay, National Safe Boating Week.
You don't say anything.
Here to receive the proclamation is Mark Koski, Squadron Commander, Barbara Erickson, Executive Officer, Ronald James, come on up guys, Education Officer, Barbara Bryant, Secretary, Yvonne James, Treasurer, Dick Littrell, Administrative Officer, Dale Erickson. Members at large are Herb Shack, members at large Joan Peterson, members at large, and these are all members of the Americans Boating Club of Lakeland. We have two safety proclamations today related to water. This is the first. So this is National Safe Boating Week. Whereas recreational boating is fun and enjoyable, and Floridians are fortunate to have abundant resources accommodating a wide variety of pleasure boating demands, and whereas the U.S. Coast Guard statistics show an average of 700 people die each year in boating-related accidents, drowning was the reported cause of death in 3/4 of those fatalities, and 88% of those who drowned were not wearing life jackets, 88%. Whereas the vast majority of boating accidents are human error or poor judgment and would have been prevented had the boat operators been well educated in safe boating practices. And whereas celebrating the 8th anniversary this year, the United States Power Squadrons, DBA America's Boating Club, is a nonprofit educational organization founded in 1914 dedicated to making boating safer by teaching classes in boating safety, seamanship, navigation, and related subjects. And whereas the United States Power Squadron, DBA America's Boating Club, has nearly 45,000 members organized into 450 squadrons, our local squadron, the Lakeland Sail and Power Squadron, DBA America's Boating Club, Lakeland, celebrated its 67th anniversary this year and has been providing boater education and free vessel safety checks in Lakeland and the surrounding area since 1955. The current leadership team is standing before you, and the members of the squadron wish to commemorate the efforts of all United States squadrons members around the country who provide safe boating education to their members and the public. And whereas we urge those who boat to continually avail themselves of the opportunity to further their knowledge of boating safety and practice safe boating habits, now therefore I, H. William Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, do hereby proclaim National Safe Boating Week, May 21 through May 27th. So who would like to speak on behalf of this illustrious crew? All right, okay.
I'm getting voluntold.
Voluntold, right here.
Voluntold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. So I'm Mark Koski. I'm the most recent Commander Squadron. So the main effort is doing boater education. So anybody that has a Florida boater ID, we teach the class in order for FWDC to give you that card, as long as you pass the test. So that's what our outreach is we want to promote boater education and vessel safety check. So it's free for anybody in the community. All you have to do is give us a call, send us an email. We'll come out and check your boat, make sure you have all the proper safety equipment, flares, life jackets, everything that's there required. We don't issue citations. We don't have that authority, nor do we want to. Again, it's just about community outreach. So we want to help you prepare for that so you don't get any kind of citation. So our slogan is come for the education, stay for the friends. So again, we promote education, and many of our memberships, we're just out on the boat and having fun.
Mark, what are the biggest omissions you see?
Biggest omissions really is the visual distress signals. So not having properly dated or expired flares, day use flares and night use flares, the orange smoke and the red flare, stuff like that. Those are required for any tributary that you can get to the open ocean. So on closed lakes, not required, but that's the number one thing is the safety flares.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, and we'll take a picture. Everybody get in close. All right, take a break and work. That's right. And go skinny on voting. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Now we are going to look at National Public Works Week. And here to receive the proclamation is Greg James, our Assistant Director of the City of Lakeland Public Works Department, and staff members that may join, like Ryan Lazenby. All right. These are the people that make all the things happen that you benefit from in streets and organizing buildings and taking care of the way things are laid out and handling it on an ongoing basis. And again, is going to join us as well. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and the well-being of the people of the city of Lakeland. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services are the result of dedicated efforts by public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders, engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government as within the private sector, build, improve, and protect our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Lakeland to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, which is sponsored by the American Public Works Association and the Canadian Public Works Association, we pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees while recognizing their substantial contributions to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life as they remain ready and resilient. Now, therefore, I, H. William Mutz, City of Lakeland Mayor, on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 15th through 21st as National Public Works Week. And would you like to make a comment with respect to this, sir?
Sure. Good morning, Greg James, Assistant Director of Public Works. Our Director, Heath Frederick, wanted to be here, but he's away traveling. But I want to take the opportunity to recognize the 292 members of our Public Works family and the dedication they have to providing superior services to the City of Lakeland, and also thank the City Manager's Office and the City Commission for supporting us in that mission.
And this is the team that plans how we're going to move through the city ahead of time, and it's working on those kinds of things as well. And so it takes a lot of time to acquire properties, the Wabash extension. How long have we spent on Wabash? Just talk about that a second.
Well, Wabash, if you go back to when we did the original public meetings, it's been about a 10-year process between the study, and then it took about 18 to 24 months to design, and then right-of-way acquisition, I think took us close to maybe 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then we finally were able to get the project out to bid, and we opened the road, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm. So it just takes lots and lots of time. Thank you. All right, quick picture, and you can hold this. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. We're now going to do Water Safety Month, and here to receive the proclamation is Sheriff Grady Judd, who I saw just a few minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry I was able to catch the sheriff on his way out. He had a conflict on his schedule and needed to go ahead and leave.
Okay. And he has a conflict on his schedule, but the rest of the team is on their way up, so that is great. This is certainly very, very important. Thank you for being here, by the way. All right. Keep coming. Is it all right? Bring your kids. That's right. It is a mighty team.
Down.
I love passionate people. May 2022 is National Water Safety Month, intending to educate the public, policymakers, and public health professionals about safer water practices. And whereas drowning incidents occur for many reasons, including lack of swimming skills, first aid skills, barriers to prevent unsupervised water access, close supervision, failure to maintain pool equipment leading to entrapment, failure to wear life jackets, to drink alcohol responsibly, and to recognize potential hazards such as rain-filled buckets, toilets, bathtubs, water coolers, retention ponds, canals, and neighboring pools. And whereas drowning is the second leading cause of death in children under 5 in Florida. Fatal and non-fatal drownings are silent events occurring in as little as 2 inches of water. The loss of a child is heartbreaking and has rippling, long-lasting effects on the lives touched by it. And whereas water safety education plays a vital role in the prevention of drowning and recreation water-related injuries, and whereas it is of vital importance to communicate water safety rules and programs to families and individuals of all ages, including owners of private pools, users of public swimming facilities, or visitors to water parks. And whereas local and national agencies such as Cotillion on Injury Prevention of Polk County, Safe Kids Suncoast Coalition, City of Lakeland Parks and Rec, Polk County Sheriff's Office, and their partnering agencies educate Lakeland residents on pool and open water safety. And whereas the City of Lakeland recognizes the critical role that swimming and aquatic-related activities play in supporting good physical and mental health and enhancing the quality of life for all residents, and acknowledges the ongoing efforts of the public and private sector to support water safety initiatives and extend their continued support for the actions of local agencies to promote water safety in the City of Lakeland. Now therefore, I, H. William Mutz, Mayor, on behalf of the entire Lakeland Commission, do hereby recognize May 2022 as National Water Safety Month. So, who would like to speak? Nick. She was ready with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Biggest thing that we've seen since 2018 is the rise of at-home pool drownings. Polk County is the second leading death of at-home pool drownings. So if you do have a pool at home, parents, please always watch your kids. Just because you turn away to grill or say have a conversation, that doesn't mean that your child cannot slip under the water. So please do always keep your eyes on your child. Enroll your kids in swim lessons. We have swim lessons all over Polk County, here in the city at Gandy Pool and Simpson Pool. Please get your kids in swim lessons, and shout out to our boater safety guys. Don't just pack it, wear your jacket. Okay, make sure those kids always have life jackets available for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, very, very much. Okay, we'll take a picture. You have to go very, very narrow.
Get very close here.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And Mr. Mayor, just really quick to add on to that, my first job in high school was a lifeguard in a city, and I got a water safety instructor course. And just so you know that it's vitally important to teach swimming lessons and get your kids in lessons, as they mentioned, but also we're now in the time of end of school parties and birthday parties in the summer and have pools. Always have an adult be on watch. I have been at many a pool party when my children were little, and I've pulled 3 children out of pool parties where somebody just slipped under the water. And so that lifeguard gene never goes away, thankfully, but really pay attention because it can happen in a split second.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. All right, then the last proclamation is William Bill Garden Day. And come on up, sir, because I have an opportunity. And any of your team that you'd like to have join, if you'd like to. Come on. Come on. We see you there. Bill has been the president and CEO of Peace River Center, and his wife, Mary Beth, is here as well. And as you know, Peace River, I'm going to do the tie here. Help each other. Peace River, which does phenomenal work in our county. Bill has been the CEO of, and now let me read. Peace River Center was founded in the late 1940s due to the community's concern for children's emotional and psychological well-being. Over time, PRC gradually expanded its services to include adults. And whereas Peace River Center is now a licensed, independent, and nationally accredited nonprofit provider of mental health, substance abuse, and integrated medical services serving Polk, Highlands, and Hardy counties, providing options for people struggling with mental health and substance use, for children and adults coping with the trauma of abuse and violence, crisis intervention for people in acute need, and housing and community support and integration for people affected by domestic violence or whose recovery requires more support and time. Whereas Peace River's dedicated and compassionate staff of more than 400 operate 36 programs from 27 locations, providing 24/7 emergency psychiatric response services to the community through its mobile psychiatric crisis response team. And in fiscal year 2021, Peace River Center had contact with and provided services to more than 20,000 children, adolescents, adults, and seniors. And whereas May is Mental Health Awareness Month with the theme of Together for Mental Health, recognizing that millions of Americans face the reality of living with a mental illness, together we can fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illness and their families. And by the way, we wear green to do that, don't we, to some degree, which none of us have on. Yeah, that's all right. Imagine that we're all in green, and we're actually leprechauns at some level. Whereas since 2013, William Bill Garden has been the president and chief executive officer of Peace River Center. Under his leadership, PRC has expanded services and locations, improved outcomes, and secured the organization's financial stability, all of which are majorly important accomplishments. Whereas Bill Garden led the organization in raising more than $5 million to expand these services by adding a second crisis stabilization unit in Lakeland. Most recently, Garden worked with staff to initiate a partnership known as the Community Mobile Support Team, which places crisis counselors at Polk County Sheriff's District offices. This is the go-to place for the Sheriff's Office on mental health services. Whereas Bill Garden has embodied PRC's commitment to engaging, restoring, and empowering individuals to reach their fullest potential. His untiring advocacy for the advancement of the behavioral health profession earned him the respect and admiration of his colleagues throughout the state of Florida. Now, therefore, I, H. William Mutz, as mayor of the city of Lakeland, and on behalf of the entire commission, do hereby proclaim Monday, May 16th, as William Bill Garden Day in Lakeland. Sir, thank you so much.
Well, as I told my staff when they came in today that I was going to go ahead and use my Bill Garden Day to give them access to free parking spaces in the free parking spaces that are in the parking lot. So
another fiscally conservative move.
There we go. There we go. But mental illness is as common as individuals with brown eyes. It's more common than monarch butterflies, unfortunately. It's as common as silver cars. It occurs more frequently than there are people born that are left-handed. It affects just about everyone in our community. And we need to do things to talk about it, to be able to make it okay to have mental illness, to make it okay to get treatment for mental illness, and to make it okay to have a quality life in our community, which we all want to have for individuals that have mental illness. So thank you for this recognition, Mayor, Commissioners. And on behalf of Peace River Center staff and the over 20,000 people that we serve every year in Lakeland, Polk County, Highlands County, Hardy County, there we go. I almost forgot it. It'd be a bad thing. Thank you for this recognition.
We thank you so much. So we'll do a picture getting together. Go clear.
If I can have one of you.
Move on to the other side. Look at that.
Balance. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you for All right, at this point, we will begin the business at hand. And I appreciate the opportunity for those proclamations. It's good educationally for all of us to recognize some of the disciplines of life that we may not be aware of that are working and in place, helping all the time, as well as just sharpen our own willingness to recognize these growing needs that occur in our community. We'll begin our meeting with the approval of the minutes and any of the consent agenda items.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Any comments or questions by commissioners? Any by the public? Consent items are all those that are with an asterisk in the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. That unanimously passes. We then have 2 requests to appear from the general public. Requests like these have to be done in advance, and they are done through the city manager's office, different from audience comments that occur at the end of the meeting. So these 2 are, the first one is from Beverly Copeland regarding traffic on Carpenter's Way. And Beverly, just come up to the little stand there. You have 5 minutes, yes. Unless you'd rather be in the middle. Would you rather be in the middle?
I don't care.
Go there, be in the middle.
I'll be in the middle.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Beverly Copeland. I am the president of Sandwich Villas, which are 38 homes on a street in Lakeland. That represents just under $8 million in assets that I represent. Lakeland Park Center Drive was a nice addition to our neighborhood. However, initially, I thought the plan was to extend that road to North 98 behind Ford's to eliminate all the traffic that we have on that 2-lane road. The congestion on this road is extremely high. There is a bottleneck at the corner of Carpenter's Way and North 98 because there's a short light there at the most, because I've been down there a couple of times. 5 to 6 cars can get through. When you have traffic coming in the evening and everybody's using that route, I've seen it backed up to Wedgewood Estates Road, which is down past the old carpenter's home. This is only going to get worse as the proposed development could possibly bring another 3,000 to 4,000 cars to that neighborhood. It is not even safe to walk because you only have sidewalk on one side. The other side is where the golf course is. It's the speeders come through there so fast, I'm scared to even ride my bike because there's no room. I used Lakeland Park Center Drive the other day. I came off a Socrum Loop. I was making a right. This guy blew through the stop sign and was on me like this. I don't know what we can do to slow down the speeders. You know, can we put in speed bumps? What can we do to slow down the traffic? Like I said, it's only going to get worse as the proposed development goes forward. I am not the only one with this concern. I am one of 8 HOA managers, and I've got their phone numbers, email addresses, and everything if you wish to speak to them with regards to this issue. This community, I've lived in the same house for over 20 years. The majority of the residents on that street have lived there longer than me. Some of them have passed away and passed their homes on to their kids. So now we got a few more kids in the neighborhood. It's not safe for them to be out there. I don't want fatality out there. I've lived in the same place for 20 years. So I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. We will pass that on to traffic and have them get back with the HOA Association.
And Mr. Mayor, I think not only the traffic goes, I travel the road quite a bit, you know, because of connectivity. I was, Ms. Belvin, I think you know who I am, but
I know who you are.
I was pleased to see the connection that came from Socrum Loop over to support, you know, what we needed to have. But as you just indicated, the plan was to continue it on.
That's correct.
But because of some situations that, you know, that would help us to try to move and traverse forward west if it became a standstill. So I know traffic ops and of course our public works department can speak in reference to it. I see, of course, them coming back into the chambers now. But certainly, I think if we were having the speeders kind of thing, LPD should be involved in the situation as well.
Well, many years ago, we had, when Chief Giddens was the police chief, we used to have motorcycle officers there. Well, it was so prevalent, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. That's how fast people ride, not only cars, trucks. And so maybe if we had more police presence. Now, Saturday was the first time that I saw an officer posted there, and God knows when. So I don't know if we need to increase, the patrols of that area or, to slow the people down. When that used to happen, because it happened on a regular basis, everybody would slow down when they got there.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would just love to hear some thoughts from city staff, if there's anything that you can share at this point, or if it's hey, we need to come back, but curious.
Mr. James?
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Morning again, Greg James, Assistant Director of Public Works. I missed part of her concern. I was out of the office, but we have recently opened the new connection from basic Cracker Barrel west over to Carpenter's Way. And then with the redevelopment of the golf course, we're in discussions on being able to extend that west over to Ford's Garage, which will give you a total complete frontage road north of I-4. As far as speeding and things like that, we can talk with our partners at LPD and see about some potential additional enforcement. And then I'd just like to meet with her outside and see what I did not hear and see what we can take care of.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate you coming back in the room. And if you can talk to her outside. And Greg, I think you answered the question that she started with, which was related to that connection to Ford's Garage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, sir?
No.
They're all good. All right. That brings us then to the second request to hear from the general public, which is Billy Townsend regarding short-term rentals. Mr. Townsend?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm here as the president of the Lake Morton Neighborhood Association. We had a meeting about a month ago about short-term rentals. It's been kind of a bubbling issue for a while, and I think the growth is quite explosive in the city right now. I think 33801 and 33803 have between them 200 from what we were able to count. And they're all, they're different types. Some are 4 or 5 room, wholly used as short-term rentals. Some are people who are renting out a room, who live there. So all in all, the point of this meeting this morning is, or for me coming this morning, is to try to get the city's legal position on what it's able to do right now, like what just have that established, because when people have asked me about it, it's been hard to say actually what you all think you can do right now, and then assume there's nothing we can do, which let's assume that for a second. Then what would a political position be? Like what are steps we would like to see? Does the city want to have the capacity to regulate these businesses? And I think that's what we're trying to start the process of here. I'll take any questions from any of you if you want, but I think I'm going to take my LMNA hat off for a second and put my Billy hat on for a second. In a lot of ways, this is an issue a bit like the road diet, which I support, in that you guys are being stuck with the local blame for whatever the implementation is. And it's fine to say the state says this, or the state does that, or the state, but the state has names. We have elected representatives who are the state. Colleen Burton has a name. Kelly Argel has a name. Do we have a approach for our legislators to represent our interests on this particular issue, and similar to the road diet as well? I think if you think there's no legal approach, it is time to think about a political approach, and then think about what that would look like. So I had a couple of specific questions on my email that I think all of you got. If it would be possible to get those answered, you don't have to answer it here, but in writing, that would be great. And we'll just kind of go from there.
Let's start with a comment by our city.
Sure, I addressed this on Friday as well. I don't think all of y'all are here, but as Mr. Townsend indicated, there is a state preemption with respect to the regulation of vacation rentals. It's a broad preemption of the regulation of public lodging establishments. The state has backed off of that a little bit with respect to vacation rentals, and the preemption now is simply as to the prohibition of them. So they do leave open the door for some regulation of vacation rentals at the local level, provided they don't result in an effective prohibition of vacation rentals. So you can regulate things potentially like occupancy, provided it's not so onerous that it acts as a prohibition. Potentially parking. A lot of jurisdictions, or some jurisdictions at least, have established local registries so that there's a local contact that people can contact if there's a problem, a complaint. So there are things you can do to regulate the operation, but the state has preempted the prohibition. One exception to that is for regulations that were in existence prior to June 1st of 2011. And unfortunately, the city did not have anything explicit on the books that acted as a prohibition of short-term rentals or vacation rentals prior to that time. So we do appear to be subject to that broader preemption of the prohibition of short-term rentals, but there are some things that we could do to regulate the actual operation of these units.
So we could address some of those things that would become standards.
We can do, yes.
And there's two issues here beyond the maybe negativeness that you're mentioning with respect to how it changes maybe the face of the neighborhood and what's going on a daily basis, but it also eliminates places people could rent, and the driver in this, of course, is that an Airbnb typically is going to create more income for the owner than a rental unit is probably going to. But when we're in a period of time in our city where we're limited on rental spaces, every one of those things that is able to be preserved for rental is an advantage as well. Yes.
Good. Can I ask Almer Davis a question real quick? So several cities have done some things. It's my understanding some of those are under legal challenge currently. Are they? Have they held up? Do you know what the status of some of those?
There's definitely a lot of litigation. Jared has come to the podium. He's the city attorney. He's looked at some of the litigation.
Yeah, Jared Simpson with City Attorney's Office. We've been following this since the question came to our office back in October. There's been quite a bit of litigation. St. Augustine, for example, that recently was reported that they were faced with about 40 lawsuits when they passed their recent regulation. The attorney that was representing the plaintiffs told the newspaper that it was about $50 million in liability that the city was looking at. One of those lawsuits that I was following from that did conclude, and the city did prevail. But it's a little bit of a different situation than us. As Palmer explained, in St. Augustine, they had short-term rental regulations on the books prior to 2011, and the same was with Daytona Beach and Miami as well. So there's litigation in all three of those cities, but they all had regulations on the books prior, so that the opinions that came from the court out of that are not going to be particularly helpful for us, because we're a little bit of a different situation legally because we don't have any grandfathered in regulations. I did find one lawsuit with Flagler County dealing with a regulation that was post 2011, and that was upheld as well. And Palmer mentioned some of the things that ordinance did. They limited the amount of people that could be in the unit, but the occupancy. They required parking. They required scaled drawings of the interior so that they could see how many rooms were going to be used for renting. They required every room that was going to be a rental room would have a window. They required parking space for each unit inside. And then that was all done through a registration process that would get submitted to the city and reviewed by someone in their planning department.
What city was that?
That was Flagler County.
Flagler County, as a county.
And just to be clear, this is my LMNA hat back on. You know, there are a number of people in the neighborhood who are good neighbors who own short-term rentals or rent out a room. I mean, this is not us here banging a gavel and saying prohibit them. You know, it's how do we think intelligently about something that's just happening to us right now. We're not guiding it in any way. We as a city, you know. Right.
So it's been less the problems of behavior, more just the prevalence of.
Well, there have been some behavioral problems, and I would say those are primarily the self-contained ones. You know, where it's not somebody who lives in the home renting out a room. And you know, if you talk to people who live with several of them around them, their experience is not what they imagined when they moved in to this neighborhood. You know, I'm lucky on my street. We don't have a ton on my street, but I think it's, you know, there are a lot of interests to balance, and I think it's going to take some thinking through, and a political strategy and a regulatory strategy that thinks through that. And so that's what we're trying to kind of kickstart today.
Okay. Hey, Commissioner Walker, who serves as the Florida League of Cities president, certainly has had a lot of input opportunities. So what have you heard, sir?
I was going to just share that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we had two bills that came before the legislature. The FLC, Florida League of Cities, you know, made sure that we could kill, and they did die during this past session. So I know for the past, I would say 3 or 4 years now, you know, there have been different bills that will come up, you know, during session, and FLC has done its part to make sure that we do not allow preemption to come before, you know, cities, towns, and villages. And as Mr. Jarrett had mentioned, and also I see the attorney Palmer Davis has mentioned, you know, if you didn't have regulation before 2011, then you kind of like almost stuck. But there are some things, as you just mentioned, and as he has mentioned, city attorney, that we can look into and hope support, you know, I guess I'll call the actual situations that could occur or that are occurring that we can help regulate in some respects. So I think it'd be something we can move forward with.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and talking to us about the states. It is interesting going with Commissioner Walker to FLC conferences. It has been quite a topic, and you can imagine on the coast and in some of the more tourist activity areas that this has been more problematic than in Lakeland in the past. You know, maybe we're not the big destination on the beach to have big parties and Airbnbs. But I am curious, as you know, kind of pull your neighborhood, you know, a lot of things seem to be happening. You know, obviously we're experiencing growth, but sitting on the Tourism Development Council board, getting the bed tax for the county, there's also a shortage of hotel rooms. So we're at like kind of maximum capacity with shortage. So I'm curious if that's playing into it. And then, and another thing, obviously you mentioned this a little bit, is just, you know, affordability for people at large with inflation and things like that, mounting costs. So I'm curious, is it we become more attractive as a tourist destination and so more Airbnb, or is it the lack of hotels, or is it all these things, including the affordability of people wanting to rent out, you know, a room or their garage apartment to be able to pay the bills?
Several of the owners of short-term rentals who we were just discussing this with cited the lack of hotels. They said that's a big help to them in marketing their places. I think because A, the homes are kind of historical and nice and interesting in Lake Morton, and B, you're right near Florida Southern College, where I think when parents come to Florida Southern College to visit their kids, I think are staying less in hotels and staying more in our neighborhood, which is, you know, which is fine. But I think that's driving some of it. But there's also people who will be located here for a period of time for work or something like that. And I think you're seeing a lot of those types of folks in places that people own and live in. You know, and you know, my personal preference someday down the line might be to have you have to live there. You know, if there were no rules, you know, except the rules that we could make, I think that might be one thing that would be effective in a residential neighborhood. But of course, that is going to run up against property interest as well. So it's a long term.
Legally, probably one of the toughest things to do.
Right, and there was like a statute passed this year, right, where if you cost somebody money with a regulation, you have to. I mean, I wonder if that would apply to this, probably. So you know, that's the.
Right.
There was it's the Business Protection Act.
Business Protection Act.
Business damages. There's an exception in that rule for zoning or ordinances that are passed pursuant to the Growth Management Act. So we would want to take a close look at anything, whatever the commission directed us to do, but there could be a way to avoid that. There's also the Home Business Protection Act that came last year, which prevents us from regulating home-based occupation, but that act also had an exception for short-term rentals. So presumably we can treat those differently than other home-based occupations.
But I did hear Commissioner Madden mention Burt Harris, and that is in play.
Yes.
So, and that's been in play for a while.
It has.
So I think probably the sense of the commission would be that we'd like City Manager Shiraz to kind of coordinate with what you think the recommendations might be.
We can workshop it.
And then we could talk about that maybe in the workshop.
We workshop it, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Would you agree?
Sure. Yes.
Commissioner McLeod, I see a
Thank
different
you, Mayor.
face.
Yeah, well, I would want to hear, and we've heard some specific concerns from Mr. Townsend, and to see what types of feasible regulations would address those concerns, and if those are workable within the law, and just before we get too far down the road of drafting potential regulations, just to see what we're able to do as a local government. Does that address the concerns that you all are bringing to us?
I think that's why it's important. That's why we workshop it, so we can be able to see those things, hear those things.
They bring that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a two-part to this. One is, what do you actually have the power to do? Do you think you actually have the power to do? And if you do have power, how would you like to use that power? You know, and you know, I think that's both those things need some work. And so I think what I hear though is if you guys were to pass a regulation today and it go into effect, you'd be pretty concerned about that being struck down based on our lack of anything from pre-2011.
If that regulation had the effect of prohibiting someone's ability to use their property as a short-term rental, if it addressed some of the ancillary effects of short-term rentals, I wouldn't be as concerned about that.
It's more cream off the top.
Okay, so any individual use, like if a person's using it now, the idea of rolling that back would be a non-starter.
That's a tough one.
Yes.
Probably. But let's let you have an opportunity to explore those things, and then when it's timely.
If it's the commission's direction, we can certainly set up a workshop and bring forth sort of an a la carte list of different regulations that have been adopted, and you can talk about those.
Unanimously.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Thanks very much.
for your time.
Okay, that brings us to section 3A1. Well, we normally would have an equalization board. We don't, so I'm going past to 3A1, ordinances second reading. And that's City Attorney Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First ordinance for second reading, public hearing this morning is proposed ordinance number 21-055, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida relating to local government comprehensive planning, providing for text amendment CPA 21-002 to the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan, our Community 2030, updating the City of Lakeland's water supply plan consistent with the Central Florida Water Initiative Original Water Supply Plan, making findings, providing an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Unanimously passes. Number 2.
Next is proposed ordinance number 22-018, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 5751 to modify an existing conditional use to allow an outdoor covered play pavilion on property located at 1736 New Jersey Road, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Wow.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Unanimously passes.
Next is proposed ordinance number 22-019, an ordinance relating to local government comprehensive planning, making findings, providing for small-scale amendment number LUS 22-002 to a certain portion of the future land use map of the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan, our community 2030, changing the future land use designation on approximately 8.57 acres located at the southeast corner of Parkway Frontage Road South and Pipkin Creek Road, from Neighborhood Activity Center, NAC, to Residential Medium RM, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
And a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Barmby had his hand up as we were taking the roll call. Do you want me to? Aye, but.
Aye. Okay.
Point that out.
Mr. Barmby, your comment, sir?
For the record, Chuck Barmby with the Lakeland Community and Economic Development Department. We do have a couple of requested revisions to the conditions on the PUD side of the project, as well as a tweak to the layout that we'd like to offer today.
Okay, so we'd want to vote on that separately. So what are those?
Well, that is related to the ordinance, the next ordinance, which I'm about to read into the record. This is related to the land use ordinance we just adopted. That is, so the next ordinance, proposed ordinance 22-020, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 4382 as amended to provide for a modification to plan unit development zoning for Lakeside Preserve to allow for up to 120 additional multifamily dwelling units in lieu of 20,000 square feet of retail personal service uses and 45,000 square feet of office, institutional, and hotel uses on approximately 8.57 acres located at the southeast corner of Parkway Frontage Road South and Pipkin Creek Road, changing the context sub-district on approximately 5.76 acres of said property to suburban neighborhood S and H, providing conditions, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right. If you would like to propose those, that would be great. Sure. Thank you very much. Again, Chuck Barmby with Community Economic Development. The site in question is at the southeast corner of Pipkin Creek Road and South Parkway Frontage Road, about a half mile from the Hardin Boulevard Pipkin Drainfield Road intersection. So the proposed request would pretty much, from a zoning side, would change current commercial and office entitlements to allow for 120 multifamily units to be combined with the existing entitlement for 271 multifamily units to develop a full 391 unit multifamily community within the Lakeside Preserve community. So in terms of just a tour of the site, looking off Pipkin Creek Road, again, the property we're looking at is the far northern portion of the Lakeside Preserve PUD, formerly called Hunterfield, formerly called Palm Springs. And so one of the requested revisions to the layout plan, and this is something that we've shown the commission through the past 2 agenda studies, but we wanted to reiterate today that this is slightly different than the attachment D that is in the ordinance for your consideration. Really the significant change is that the longer buildings along the northern and eastern boundaries of the development are switched so that the unit count stays the same, but in terms of form, we've got the smaller buildings now relocated to the eastern side of the site and the 2 longer buildings relocated to the north side. So it's a tweak, but one that we wanted to note and make sure it was considered in the action today.
So our motion would include that revision.
The revision.
In terms of other, and I would say more substantive changes requested by the applicant, and I will put them on the camera here. There we go. By way of background, this is unique in that this is a planned unit development which is actually owned and developed by multiple landowners. And so one of the concerns by this applicant for the multifamily development is that we don't impose conditions on him that he cannot control. And so with that in mind, we have a requirement for cross-access between the multifamily, proposed multifamily, and the single-family developments today. The multifamily developer and the single-family developer are using the same transportation consultant to quantify the cumulative traffic impacts of both developments within the overall PUD. But a part of that is cross-access and making sure that the multifamily development has full access to Pipkin Creek Road. And so the language that's shown here is really intended to clarify the responsibilities of both developers, but also lay the groundwork that in the event Polk County ultimately does not allow the Pipkin Creek driveway for the multifamily development to be full access, restricting it to right in, right out, that there would be access, as it should be today, back through Lakeside Preserve to get back to Pipkin Creek Road, the existing gated entrance. When the single-family development was platted several years ago, the roadway system was private, and so there isn't today a full cross-access easement agreement to connect property that's owned by the housing authority on the east end of the multifamily development site to Pipkin Creek Road. And so we want to make sure that issue is addressed. Now, should the multifamily development, the subject property, have full access to Pipkin Creek Road, we want to make sure that there is the opportunity to gate that access between the multifamily and the single-family development, make that an emergency access, but allow for pedestrian movements of all types. And so this condition that's shown in red addresses that issue, and we believe provides certainty in terms of access for all the parties within this PUD, but also allows for restriction should full access be granted to the multifamily to Pipkin Creek Road.
Okay, questions by commissioners on this at all?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Barnaby, so doing this, would that be still congruency so people could be able to traverse as it should? Would this allow that?
Yes. Whereas under the entitlements that exist today, the original intent is that the residential portions of the PUD would have access to commercial and office. But with it now transitioning to two types of residential, yes, the cross-access in terms of full cross-access is much less of an issue from the single family to through the multifamily. Okay. We just want to make sure that there's a secondary access point and that also the pedestrians can connect between the two neighborhoods.
Got it. Thank you.
So Chuck, for clarity, this reflects the building that was already discussed. However, this red paragraph is in addition to what we do not already currently have.
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a couple more just to.
Okay.
Got some more? Got some more.
Do you have more amendments too?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I apologize.
All right. So the second amendment here that we're addressing is again at the request of the applicant, and it clarifies the responsibilities in terms of the off-site access mitigation. Pipkin Creek Road is owned and operated by Polk County. There's about a 500-foot distance between the multifamily development's access point and Drainfield Road. And so the intent here is to ensure that there is participation between both parties in the development of the mitigation plan to address that section of roadway. And that it also establishes that if one of the developers wants to move forward kind of ahead of schedule, that they would have the ability to do that there would be financial guarantees in place, and that everybody would be protected going forward.
Questions on that at all? You're next.
All right. The last one. And the last one is primarily related to the fact that the multifamily development, by definition, would not be a platted subdivision, would not have a homeowners association, and so the intent here is to separate out, that the multifamily development would certainly be responsible for its stormwater mitigation and its permitting, and that the single-family development to the south would also have that responsibility through its homeowners association. So all that this is doing is separating it out so that the multifamily is not responsible for the stormwater mitigation on the single-family portion of the development.
Commissioner McCarthy.
I just have a process question. Is this, I don't remember doing this before because we didn't see this on Friday at Agenda Study, so it's relatively quick. When was this submitted?
I think we've been talking now for, what, a couple of weeks?
So did we see this Friday?
We don't have a copy of these changes.
We don't have any changes. So
We don't have those copies.
yeah, we haven't seen that. Now I would be hard pressed to vote on that right now without having a little more time to process it myself personally. But I would defer to the rest of the commission that these are changes that are really quick.
That's certainly your prerogative to continue the public hearing to consider it further.
Commissioner Reed, do you have a thought here?
No.
Okay, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the same question about just the timeline for when the requested changes came in. They make sense to me, Chuck, but I would like to have a copy to be able to read through them and make sure that I'm comfortable with them, as Commissioner McCarley mentioned, before voting on it.
Even if it were yesterday.
Yeah.
And I will ask the applicant's counsel to also address this question as well.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. For purposes of your record, my name is Tim Campbell, Clark Campbell Lancaster Workman and Airth, 500 South Florida Avenue, representing Alliance, the developer and applicant in this case. This is just adding on the corner, which is currently commercial, retail, office, and hotel on a location on a basically one-way road that's not appropriate for that kind of use. It's adding 120 units to the existing entitlements. I'll tell you the changes without going into the appropriateness of it. Your staff over time, the PUD provided for interconnection and cross-access. We are absolutely fine with that. The development that has been constructed to date changed a public road to a private road. They've dedicated to an association, so it gets rather complicated. So all Alliance has done, we've already met with the city regarding transportation, mitigation, and requirements. We've met with Polk County about intersection improvement designs. Alliance will be moving forward with the improvements. We're not waiting on anybody. You saw some of the language, just making sure that the existing developer, because they also are obligated to participate in that there is a mechanism outside of the zoning that we can make sure there's a mechanism that whoever proceeds first is paid the other party's part and allows us to do that. The other language, quite frankly, they said if we're able to get the the direct access to Pipkin Creek Road from our development, which the county has indicated they would accept that. They wanted that access to be emergency access only through their development because of the challenge of not owning the road anymore and having to go through an association of an already existing development. So we were trying to accommodate that. And this last change that you see is only because this is a normal Southwest Florida Water Management District requirement in a subdivision with stormwater management that there must be an association so those rules can be enforced. It doesn't make sense for a single developer, so we just allowed that for the multifamily, the developer would be the responsible party under our SwiftMud permit. So, and we did, and Chuck and your staff are great to work with, and this has been very complicated as a result of the development that's already in place, and they've done a very good job. We did submit it several weeks ago, but there have been a lot of discussions, so I'm not faulting them. But it is, and I know now that you haven't read it, but it is relatively simple. It just tweaks that allowance to make sure Alliance can move forward, and there aren't gotchas that if the existing developer doesn't do something that we would be tied up. And so we would respectfully request that you consider approving it today. And we stand for any questions.
Are there any dissenting issues? Are there any dissenting issues by either of the owners of this?
No. When it comes to the mitigation, as Chuck mentioned, we both use the same transportation planner. And so it will just be an allocation of the cost and what the costs are. If we can't resolve those, we have to resolve those between ourselves. That's not something the city is stuck dealing with. So we have to do that. They understand, we were dissenting. If we couldn't get the direct access to Pipkin Creek, we had to enforce the PUD requirement for cross access because they had basically left the original parcel without sufficient access. But I think we've resolved that, so there aren't really any dissenting issues. I'll add from a comment I heard at a agenda study, because I drove by and paid attention, there's a sidewalk that runs along our northern boundary on the frontage road that extends over the overpass all the way to Lakeland. So there is pedestrian connection from this multifamily community to Hardin Boulevard and the Lakeside Village Publix area.
Awesome.
All right. So, Chuck, would you agree that there's harmony on this? On all the amendments?
I would agree that there's harmony on this. I mean, certainly we were comfortable with the previous conditions, but I think this just reinforces the intent of those conditions. We're not going to hold one developer responsible for somebody else's obligation. Our intent is to make sure that the site is coordinated and that the off-site mitigation is coordinated as well at the Pipkin Creek Drainfield intersection.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand correct, Mr. Campbell, by saying the county has already been involved and shared their consent with these particular changes as best? The ones that that will be affected by them?
Yes, so Alliance has gone ahead and had our engineers design the necessary intersection improvements after meeting with Chuck for a methodology and an approach for those improvements. And we met with it was important for us to meet with the county before today to know if we would have that access. And they had some tweaks to the design, but they were comfortable with that access. I'll also point out, just for your information, that Chuck coordinated a meeting with the existing developer and our group for that harmony. So we really did sit down and talk through all the issues, and what you see today is what resulted from that meeting. So I think we're all on the same page as far as moving forward and making these things happen.
Well, and so that's good news to us. The caution and the red flag for us is we just don't like something at the 11th hour that we could have had earlier. And so certainly wouldn't want to repeat this again.
Very much understood.
Given the absence of opposition, what's your thoughts? Commissioner Reed.
I don't have any problem with it, but there again, is the adjacent property still owned by the Lakeland Housing Authority?
Yes, Alliance has the contract to purchase that property. And just to make sure the record is clear, Alliance will be doing a market rate. So the Lakeland Housing Authority is selling that property and will utilize the revenues for some of their facilities elsewhere.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
To approve with all the amendments?
With amendments, yes.
Okay, and a second. Discussion by commissioners.
I'm fine.
Any discussion or questions by the audience? All right, this is a roll call vote, so Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Unanimously passes.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
That's not what I expected about 10 minutes ago.
Well, clarification came forward.
That's right. So we appreciate the augmentation.
All
right.
All right, the last ordinance for second reading this morning is proposed ordinance number 22-021, an ordinance relating to the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District, making findings, approving the inclusion of certain lands located within the city of Lakeland within the boundaries of the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Unanimously passes.
We have a couple of resolutions for action this morning. The first is proposed resolution number 22-020, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, expanding an existing brownfield area to include additional property generally located south and east of George Jenkins Boulevard, south and west of Lake Wire Drive and Sykes Boulevard, and north of West Main Street, pursuant to Section 376.802B, authorizing the city attorney or designee to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection of said designation, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
A motion to approve and a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Reed. Discussion by commissioners. Commissioner Reed.
I'm sorry I wasn't here on Friday. I'm sure this came, this discussion. There again, this is a piece that we relinquished to them at a certain point in time on an option. I'm just concerned, again, if we designate this anyway, is this going to, should they fail to close, is going to taint the property per se, or give us any kind of a liability?
It doesn't create any liability on our part. I mean, again, the main benefit of the designation is to allow the developer to get a rebate of building tax, building material, sales tax revenue. The designation of a brownfield under Florida statutes encompasses several different scenarios. One of them is actual contamination, another is just perceived contamination. You can also get a brownfield area designation based on just property being within a CRA. So
can we unbrownfield it at some point in time if we get it back?
I don't see why not.
It doesn't create any condemnation, but it's reversible.
Condemnation? I mean,
beyond for a second buyer, I think is his question.
I think a buyer would find this attractive because it does have,
support.
It has financial advantages to it. But it could be unknown if the proposed development falls through.
Good question. Other questions or comments? Any by the audience? This roll call vote, Commissioner McLeod?
Aye. Yes.
Aye.
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 Unanimously passes.
All right, the next resolution is relates to the Florida Southern Conduit Bond Deal. And while I'm reading out the title of this, I'm going to pass out a certificate that I need the City Commission to sign that we've done on a number of these deals. It's simply certifying that you have complied with the Sunshine Law in adopting this action, and that also you don't have a conflict of interest. So I'll pass that around as I'm reading the title in. It is proposed resolution number 22-022, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, authorizing the issuance of the City of Lakeland, Florida Educational Facilities Revenue Refunding Note, Florida Southern College Project, Series 2022, in the principal amount of not exceeding $30 million, the 2022 note, for the purpose of providing funds to make a loan to Florida Southern College, the borrower, to provide funds to finance the cost of refinancing obligations of the borrower related to the City of Lakeland, Florida Educational Facilities Revenue and Refunding Revenue Bonds, Florida Southern College Project Series 2012A, approving the form of and authorizing the execution of a financing agreement and all exhibits and schedules thereto, the 2022 note and the tax regulatory agreement, and no arbitrage certificate, awarding the sale of the 2022 note by a negotiated sale, authorizing certain officials of the City of Lakeland, Florida, to take certain action in connection with the issuance of the 2022 note, making certain other covenants and agreements in connection with the issuance of the 2022 note, and providing an effective date. And as we discussed on Friday, this is a mechanism that allows certain nonprofit organizations to issue bonds and other financing through the local government. One of the advantages for them is it's better terms for the financing. For us, we are fully protected financially. There's no recourse against the City of Lakeland or its revenues. There's no requirement that you cannot mandate that the local government raise taxes to pay for this. If there's a default, it's completely on the Florida Southern or whoever is the borrower under this conduit deal.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Commissioner Reed.
One brief question there again. I'm sorry I wasn't here on Friday, but Mike, this similar to what we did for the hospital?
Yes, sir. The hospital, Southeastern, and I think even Carpenter's Home have done it in the past, but there is no risk for the city at all by doing this.
We attach the benefit for the entity without any risk to the city in a legal way. Okay. Any other discussion by commissioners? Any by the audience? This is a roll call. Actually, yes, it is roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Lots of ayes. Okay, popping up. Thank you.
Vote twice.
I apologize. That is it on the resolutions, and
All right.
I'm sorry. Let me go back.
Yeah, we're going to CRA.
Okay, that brings us here. So item 4A, and this is task authorization on the apiary from Hollis 2.0.
And
Good
Assistant
morning,
City
again.
Attorney.
Jared Simpson with the City Attorney's Office. As you stated, this is the task authorization with the apiary for the build-out of Catalyst 2.0. I think we have some folks here to give you a more thorough presentation of it. I'll just quickly note that this is under the city's continuing services contract for professional planning, design, and development services. The apiary is on continuing contract there, and so this is a task authorization under that contract, and it would be for a total of $280,000 to be allocated this fiscal year. That's for phase 2 of the project, which is broken out into part 1 and 2. And the total project build out is estimated at $380,000, so there is a remaining $100,000 that would be addressed next year. And with that, I would pass it on to our Assistant Director, Mr. Drumgo, to give you the more thorough presentation on.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Actually, as Assistant City Attorney mentioned, you'll get a thorough presentation. It'll actually come from Katie Worthington Decker. She is the Senior Vice President with the LEDC. She'll talk a little bit about the work that they've done to date on the Catalyst 2.0 build out, the additional investment that's been made. She's got her presentation teed up, so I just want to make sure that we can capture it from the right screen. I think I see it up over here. So.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing us an opportunity to give you the update this morning. I'm excited to be here for my first presentation in front of you, but certainly not my last. And so I hope you are ready for a very exciting update this morning. So as you know, when communities embark on visioning efforts, studies are commissioned, thick reports and static renderings are created, and the private sector and city staff are tasked with helping to bring these visions to life. But when a vision is effectively communicated, championed, and owned by community stakeholders, it increases the chances of those plans happening exponentially. And you all have experienced this to a degree with the Catalyst 1.0 plan that in part, along with the vision and determination of many local investors, brought over $150 million of capital investment along the shores of Lake Mirror. During your February retreat, we showed to you a new way to vision for the future of Lakeland through a real-time web-based platform that we have since branded as the Catalyst platform. As the name implies, and to refresh your memories and for the benefit of the audience, this tool creates a digital twin of downtown Lakeland that we believe will inspire transformational catalyst projects to improve our economy and the quality of life of Lakelanders. It will interactively help citizens understand and visualize developments that have happened in the last 3 years, that are currently under construction, that are in permitting and design, and that are being proposed or visioned for this geographic area. From a city staff and commission perspective, this tool will be both a sales tool for Lakeland to attract businesses, developers, and residents, but will also be a powerful communications tool. And I'd like to give you a few examples of how this tool can be used. Imagine if when the city was discussing the Dixieland Road diet several years ago, instead of a static photo such as this showing the before and after, we could have created a digital immersive rendering of the end product that would have allowed citizens and business owners in the corridor to bike, walk, drive around, to get a feel for what the experience would be when the project was complete. We could have pushed it out to help communicate the vision and set an expectation of the test versus the ultimate reality. Or imagine that a developer is proposing a new development that is getting a reaction from the public. What if, instead of one of these static engineering photos, you could send a link to a constituent to allow them to view the proposed development from their driveway, let's say, or various vantage points? What if a developer had multiple proposals for a site, such as a 3-story versus a 4-story building, and you wanted the citizens to be able to toggle in between? Or perhaps you have a question about a development coming up on an upcoming agenda, whether it be design, ingress and egress challenges, height variances, or traffic patterns of the McKeel car lines, as was studied here on the Oak Street project. This would allow you to have those discussions from this chamber to be able to drop in on the street and view it within the context of the downtown. These are just a few ways you as a commission could use this tool. Since I've started with the LEDC in January, I have been meeting with a lot of the innovative staff here at the city to find ways that the community economic development partners can collaborate together for the betterment of Lakeland. In my conversations with Elise, the Lakeland CRA areas are positioned to capitalize on the increased investment in Lakeland by creating and executing an ever-evolving vision plan for these districts. And as you know, his team is currently working on 3 separate strategic plans for Dixieland, East Main, and West Downtown. Through those conversations, we determined that the Catalyst platform that the apiary is developing would be extremely beneficial to the CRA in both the near and long term to bring these master plans to fruition. And that is why we are excited to request your support of a co-branded collaboration between the Lakeland CRA and the apiary, in addition to the LEDC's partnership with the apiary to build out the Catalyst platform. In the proposal, we have outlined a detailed list of services and deliverables that would be at the CRA team's disposal to not only integrate the 3 new study areas, but also help visualize their priorities and attract developers to invest in these specific areas. So today we also wanted to give you an update on the evolution of the Catalyst platform since you last saw it at your February retreat. We have Maggie and Matt from our local design team, the apiary, that are going to help us demonstrate the progress. So first and foremost, they've spent the last several months focused on the user experience of the application itself, including improving the graphics within the platform and designing the user interface. As of this week, and we're so excited, the application will be live in beta mode for the LEDC and the CRA to quality test on the web-based platform. So we won't have to carry around this big box everywhere we go to set this up. The final product will launch this fall. The apiary has built out the platform with 3 viewing capabilities, which include a high-level satellite or bird's eye view, which you see right here. Then you can click in a little bit closer to get an aerial view, and then even a little bit closer to get a street-level view, which you see being demonstrated right now on the recently completed Summit Consulting project, excuse me. Now, I want to transport you across Lake Mirror to the Orange Street Apartments, which recently broke ground. While the streets around this have not been optimized at this point, this gives you a perspective as if you were standing on the corner of Barnett Park at South Lake Avenue and Orange Street at the street level, to give you an idea as if there was a proposed project, how you might be able to visualize something that's proposed on that site. And as people are doing the research on this complex, can really see it from various vantage points. We have also had an opportunity to integrate some additional vision plans that private developers are contemplating on their properties downtown. Now, it's very important to note that these are conceptual renderings of what could be and not final proposals, but we thought it would help demonstrate how useful this platform will be. So next, let's visit a site that you discussed at a recent meeting. This is the Oak Street lot by Onyx, and while this is not the final design, which I know all of us in this room are eagerly awaiting, this is an example as to where, when you are discussing a site and have questions about design, parking, or traffic flow, you can literally go to the street level of the building, you can fly around the building, and you can look at the building within the context of the entire downtown. And apparently they can drop in cranes too to really give you the feel that it's being constructed. And now just up the street at the corner of Oak Street and Massachusetts are 2 visioned apartment buildings that are located on a property owned by Gregory Fancelli. Now this project includes 2 phases that could potentially result in over 160 residential units added to our downtown. And now I'm going to fly you to a different part of the downtown for a new edition of a vision project, and this is the first time that we'll be showing it within this platform. This is a recent conceptual vision shared with us on the Ledger property. We are landing here on Hardin Boulevard, driving from the south towards Lime Street with Hall Communications would be on your left. We see a proposed office building here in that triangle piece of land. Adjacent to that, a proposed new parking structure, and you see the Ledger building there in the middle there where Matt is moving the mouse. As you continue up Hardin and go up Lime Street, you see how this proposed concept has some additional parking structures, residential, retail, and creates a town center type feel through the middle of that project. As these and other projects come before you, we hope this tool will be useful in understanding and communicating these proposals. Through the proposed partnership with the apiary and the CRA, the area included in the program will be expanded. The CRA, city, and citizen priorities can be integrated, and we will be building an ongoing visioning and storytelling tool for our community. Thank you, and I will stand for any questions.
All right, questions by Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Katie, for the presentation. And it's exciting, and I love seeing the partnership between LADC and CRA, the apiary as well. Talk a little bit, and you touched on this, how this tool helps spur development and investment as a sales tool. How do you see this giving us even more than what we've had in the visual renderings and Catalyst, the first version, which were great, and this takes it up a notch. I love how you can fly over downtown, and I love the potential of maybe using this for other projects outside of downtown, where sometimes we're trying to explain or get our hands around a concept, and this gives you that visual. But how does this tool maybe step it up in terms of our ability to attract investment, developers, people into downtown?
Sure. So one of the first thing a developer does when they're coming to an area is they want to know what else is going on in the area. So when it comes to whether it's multifamily, the questions that they're going to ask us is what else is being developed? What are the needs in the area? What are the pros and cons? What's the infrastructure like in the area? What would be the availability of whether it be parking, and are we going to have to build the parking, or is there parking nearby? So this allows them to have a context. They can do the research on their own. If they're contacting us, if they're contacting you, this tool is available to everyone. So whether they land on the Chamber of Commerce site, and Amy and her team integrate this in the Chamber of Commerce site, whether they land on the city site, if we can have a link to it there, on the CRA site, LEDC, we want this to be a preeminent tool for them to use. But it also allows them to tell their story as well. So if a developer is willing to share their renderings or to share their project, they can drop it in here and be a part of their storytelling tool as well. So it really just helps tell the story a lot, and that's the number one thing. People don't realize the amount of pre-research people do, and they want to know who else is involved in that conversation and who the partners are that they can get in touch with.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that last point is particularly important. We get killed on projects that we don't even know we didn't get to have an opportunity to talk about. Sure. Whereas this provides the absolute flip of that, which is all the visioning. And your slap across the face originally on Dixieland is a good example of that. No, seriously, because it really is that. The fact that we haven't done as much, and not that we're not doing it now currently, because I want to talk to communications and say I'm appreciative of what is in place at the present time. But we needed to do that a year ago, and we needed to create the enthusiasm. That's because we left misunderstanding. And those kinds of tools and the ability to flip to something that is this opportunistic and progressive for us in terms of what investors in this city would like to be able to see and have questions answered is a salve for creating the opportunity to want to grow within a city that has that kind of vision. And so we're super grateful for this kind of a prototype. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Katie, for your presentation. Now, two things. I know you mentioned about Downtown West, and I know we've said there'll be some things, excuse me, already into play in hope of that becoming more connectivity between what we call our core downtown to moving west as it would be. I didn't see anything on there yet, but I'm sure I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, because there could be some developers or people looking at wanting to make sure some things happen as we move toward Downtown West. I wanted to see if you could speak to that, but secondly, I also wanted to make sure that I can understand, and as I shared with some others, especially so, with this particular program, the average Joe Blow and Jane Blow citizen can go to this and see and look and be able to share things accordingly, because I hear so many times where the average Joe Blow citizen say, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
You know, how can I find out what's going on? And of course, I should come to city commission meetings as regular as you could, or visit our website, chamber website, your website. You will never know. But this will help even, I think, advance some of the, some situations that may be coming about with programs or projects already coming into play. Is that correct?
Yes, so on the second part of your question, Commissioner Walker, this is a web-based platform.
Right.
So we hope that all of our community partners will put this on their website, that the city will have this on their website. We are designing the user interface to be very similar to a Google Map type of interface, where tools that people are used to using. If you know how to drive up a street in Google Maps by hitting the arrow, or you know how to zoom out, zoom in. So when we're talking about how the user is going to use it, you would send them, let's say there's a project that's happening in Midtown and we're expanding into the Midtown area. And someone has a question on the project. You send them a link to this and say, click here, and you'd be able to transport them directly to that project. So it's being designed in a way that it's very useful for everyone to use, but it's using those things that a lot of people are used to using already on their phones, for example, if you're driving on a Google Maps or Google Street View. To the second part of your question in terms of expanding, that's what this partnership with the CRA is allowing this to do. The LADC will still invest in this application as projects are coming along, but by the CRA's investment, it allows us to expand with outside that downtown core. Really, and I don't want to panic Matt and the developers, but possibilities are endless on this in terms of the areas of downtown that we can go to. As you saw, we flew over to West Downtown to the Ledger site, but nothing else is developed around that site yet. So if there's a particular priority coming forward that needs to get pushed ahead, even though the rest of that part of that platform isn't built out yet, we can look at how we can drop that in so that it becomes part of that storytelling tool. But this technically could be all of Lakeland on here at one point or another, but it's one bite of the elephant as you go along and try to build out the platform. But that's what we hope, because of the studies that Elise and his team are currently working on. We hope to have those 3 studies integrated. I know East Main's a little further along, and then as West Downtown and Dixie Lane get done, all that's getting folded into the project.
Thank you.
Excellent. Other questions? Commissioner Madden.
Yes, thank you, Katie. I'm so excited. I had a couple questions, and one of them, I'll just give you all the questions and you can answer them all at the same time. But the first one, you mentioned being able to, if you're willing to put a project, in, to submit for design. I'm curious, is the user interface with fixed projects that apiary has to put into, code it into the system? Or is it like when you go to Benjamin Moore and you put a picture of your house in and you could try different colors? Is there going to be that type of interface for developers to practice or put in things themselves? Or do they have to submit their plans for an actual something that would be exposed to the whole city? So that's the first thing. And then the second one is on the traffic modeling capacity. So that's obviously something, as we have dynamic growth, it's kind of number one in our email box is traffic. And I've often mentioned, if you could see those counts increase or how they would take different roads, things like that. Is that a part of this, or would that be something else, in your opinion?
So the traffic modeling is not a part of it yet. That doesn't mean that someday it might not be able to be a part of it as the technology evolves. So that's not currently in these first couple phases of this project, but I think it is part of the discussion going forward. And there's been discussions between Elise and his team and the apiary on how to integrate within some other GIS style of platforms. And so that's going to be an ongoing conversation as this product develops. To your first question, not quite that customizable yet. So there'll be a certain file type that the apiary will need from an architect or designer to be able to drop into the platform without having to recreate the whole project. So let's say that another architect in town has designed a project and they can export that project in the file type needed. Then the apiary would just have to drop that in and integrate it within the system. So there's kind of different levels, whether the apiary is taking it from greenfield and designing it ground up in terms of what that cost versus taking another architect's design and integrating it within the system, which we want that to happen. We want other architects and engineers that have been working on projects to allow those projects to be dropped in.
Okay, and is there like a private mode, before they want full exposure or not?
Yes, that says yes.
So it's so exciting. So we're just, I mean, honestly, when we had a retreat earlier in the year, I think this was probably one of our favorite presentations. Just something that we've been really looking for, and I think is going to be so beneficial and helpful going into the next decade of dynamic growth. So thank you so much. And thank you to Apiary and all your gifts and talents working on this project. It's exciting.
Other comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Are there other tools out there that local governments are using that are similar to this? Or would you say this is unique, that what you're doing?
I would say something this interactive is unique, that you do see modeling software where they'll create a video perhaps to show of people walking down the street or cars walking down the street. So I would say this is relatively unique, but Matt, if you want to answer that.
Sure. You need to be on a mic, sorry.
Here.
In my research, I haven't seen anyone put it on a city website and for their citizens to interact with it. I know they do exist, digital twins for other cities, but they're like private rooms or exhibition rooms. I know there's one for Water Street in Tampa, and there's one being worked on for Orlando right now. But as far as being a web-based application that you can play on an iPad or an iPhone, I think this will be pretty unique.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Matt, I want to compliment you and Maggie very much on the development of this thus far. And I want to look at what we're talking about here too in terms of phases. Because if you look at the Exhibit A, we are looking at actually taking it through phase 2 with this proposal today, which is the $280,000 that takes place from the city CRA. And then we have a phase 3 potentially thereafter. And in phase 3, obviously, we have to do hosting and usage and those kinds of things. But some of those projects, those new vision projects and architectural designs and placing plans into the model and those kinds of things could actually be allocated to developers. So when we're talking about somebody who wants to be able to do something and that's coming along the way, that's not necessarily an obligation as we go forward. So to me, staying creative on phase 3, which we're not talking about today. We're talking about the first 2 phases, important from the standpoint of the development of the tool and what we learn. And we'll learn a lot in the process of that, and we'll learn ways to maximize the dollars. Because whereas this certainly uses CRA dollars to do something that is very progressive for our city and it helps us to move forward, it also takes CRA dollars away from projects that we could do and apply those monies to. Now, I think this is much more catalytic, coincidentally, in the way that the dollars are used, but we want to protect both way on city funds. And so I think there's some private developer opportunities that we might be able to incorporate as we go forward in stage 3 and in phase 3, and I want to just mention that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I think it's important that we do not forget what CRA's objective is. What were they purposed for? And we got to make sure that we do that because it's the blighted and I'll call those areas that we know have been not helped and bring them back to the tax rolls for support is so important. So I think we should not forget that that's the purpose of community redevelopment. To hit those particular areas, those areas that we need, that have been blighted or have had some downtrodden situations that come about from a historical perspective, to bring them back. And bringing them back don't mean all types of other things that all the time, but I think it's important we not lose track of that.
Yeah, and this certainly does the right thing. So there's no question about that in terms of this allocation.
Yes.
This is a multiplying force and provides all kinds of vision. Just thinking about that going forward, that's all. Any other comments? Any other comments or questions by I guess we don't have a motion yet, do we?
Do not. Move for approval.
Yeah, motion to approve and a second. Okay. A discussion by commissioners beyond this. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Ms. Decker. You're marvelous at what you're doing. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your marvelous work, and we look forward to the product. All right, the next item was on consent. That brings us to city manager comments. You thought you were never going to get on the agenda today, didn't you?
My time has arrived.
5A, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item that I have for presentation is to our current budget, mid-year table of organization, modifications, appropriations, and de-appropriations. I talked about this a little bit on Friday at our strategic planning retreat. Staff was asked about what processes do we have in place to continue to seek cost reductions to our budget. And I talked about our mid-year process and the related PMF cycle that we go through. The modifications that are made may involve adding or deleting positions, pay adjustments as well, or reclassifying positions that meet departmental operational needs or will improve our service delivery. There's multiple departments that are involved in these processes. We do have a PMF committee that is comprised of our assistant city manager, our finance director, and our HR director. For this current cycle, the mid-year modifications do result in a savings of $146,000. Just a couple of examples I wanted to take a moment to point out here. You will see in the agenda item in the general fund, the fire department, and that is an appropriation of $70,977. Now, however, what you don't see here is that there is an associated general fund budget, total budget savings, because this will add some fire personnel that will offset some overtime assignments that we're currently experiencing. So in addition to the $146,000 of savings that you see here, it really nets to the general fund, as in that example that I gave a moment ago, a greater savings than what you see just in this appropriation item. Also want to point out, we've had a lot of conversation about the RP Funding Center. This is another opportunity where we've been able to realize some efficiencies there and net a savings of about $37,000, a little over $37,000 to the RP Funding Center. So you can see in the agenda item all of the other increases and decreases, but again, the net is a savings of $146,000 plus additional savings to the general fund budget overall. I want to thank our city staff and our department heads who have done a good job in this cycle, seeking those efficiencies and cost-cutting measures that have resulted in this savings that's being presented. And so it's requested that the City Commission authorize an appropriation or de-appropriation from the unappropriated surplus and the listed funds in the agenda item that are related to the mid-year organizational changes that I gave a general description of. There's more detail in the agenda item. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
And a second. Discussion by commissioners. Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sean. How would this 6,000 number compare to previous years when we've done the same process?
It has varied. I don't know, Mike, if we have, I'll ask our finance director if we might have anything that has tracked our previous years.
No, it varies. You'll notice on there, 200,000 is Lakeland Electric. I think over time we've seen a number of electric positions get taken out of the table of organization. I think that was one of the primary drivers for Mr. Ivy over the years. But I think overall, probably close. For the general fund, probably close. Usually a wash. I think one of the requirements, whether it was Doug or it was Tony or now Sean, for the departments is you have to come, for a mid-year request, you have to come with a solution. Where are we finding ways to save money, even if there's a little bit of cost? To the example of Chief Riley, we added 6 firefighters, but we're substantially reducing overtime and fire for that. So it's probably a wash from year to year, thereabouts.
Okay, that's helpful. Just trying to get a sense of how that, is this more, is it less? What have we done? Is this kind of about the average? That's always helpful.
Yeah, it goes up and down. For example, stormwater, that's unusual projects that are associated with that. We had to add a couple of folks there, unusual projects, so it's going to change from every year.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? Any other questions or comments by the audience at all? This is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Item B, sir.
Item B is my final item for today. It's regarding a recommendation related to an RFP number 2080 for broker consulting services for property and casualty insurance to Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services. Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services is the city's current broker and consulting service provider for property and casualty insurance. The current contract is due for renewal coming up on June 1st. During this RFP process back in January, 100 prospective vendors received notification of the broker consulting services request for proposals. From that, we had 3 firms that responded to that RFP request. There was then a 7-member selection committee who decided to invite the top 2 prospective firms for presentation and interviews, and they were asked to present on specific evaluation criteria at exclusive pre-scheduled times. As you know, we have a local vendor preference points ordinance, and so what resulted here was Brown & Brown, because of the local preference, outscored Gallagher by about approximately 8 points. However, in our ordinance, there is a waiver of the local preference points allowance, and so the request in this item is that we do waive the local preference points because there was great discussion regarding power generation, and power generation for the city is the city's single largest risk exposure to the city. And so engineering resources and safety and loss prevention for Brown & Brown, which again was the highest rated responded if you include the local vendor preference points, but Brown & Brown limited to 40 hours plus added costs for additional hours provided, and it would be also serviced by a third party to Brown & Brown. Gallagher, on the other hand, provided unlimited hours with no added cost and brings significant experience with dedicated in-house team members that were presented as part of the RFP submittal. Just to give you some scope, since 2014, the City of Lakeland has filed 7 related claims and received a total of almost $11 million in coverage. And so the item presented to you today will recommend that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to negotiate a contract to remain in effect for 3 years with 2 additional 1-year renewal options for the annual fee for services of $125,000 with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services. That completes presentations, and we'll stand for any questions.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second. Okay, discussion by commissioners, and we had a good discussion on this on Friday. Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sean. So I just think it's important to mention again that we had a similar discussion last year about this time because our local vendor preference was new, and then just looking at the different nuances of the vendor preference and making sure that we need to tweak anything as we actually had real life scenarios playing out. And this was a particular concern because one of our colleagues on the commission, Commissioner Franklin, was in insurance and said, you know, oftentimes you feel, you know, to break into working with the city is almost an impossibility, and why even apply when there's been a legacy provider for so many years, so it's such an advantage knowing our system. And so that, because that was a big discussion last year, I think it was important this year, and we had some extra layers of transparency to invite Commissioner McLeod and Commissioner McCarley to be able to participate in the process, just to kind of be another set of eyes, you know, and ears, and making sure that everything, you know, seems to be as favorable as possible to allowing new people to participate in the process. So I just, you know, it does look like that vendor preference was close, and what's happening here, and I just didn't want there to be any kind of, you know, questioning of the process, and for the public to know that even though it looks, you know, it's hard to really discern, you know, when you just see it on paper, how the points played out or how the process went. But just, since it's not noted in here, I thought if, we did have 2 commissioners participate in the process this time, just to make sure that, as the voice of the people, that they were there and it was fair, and that we are trying to do everything we can to give everyone a fair shake and everyone an open opportunity to do business with the city.
Appreciate that comment. And I think materially, the difference in that economically is that not only is it an expertise issue, it's an open-ended issue. One is unlimited in terms of the coverage, and the other would be hourly. And so we really don't know what the cost would be. So in both those regards, if that were a new quote next time, those unlimited issues matter. The RFP. Other comments from commissioners? Okay, any comments or questions from the audience? All right, this is also a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you, sir. That takes us out of the city manager to back to the city attorney to 7A1 on ordinance's first reading. This reading is information only. As we take a look at this, we are going to involve a staff presentation to augment it, but beyond that, this is not something that for comments. This is something for a presentation. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just go ahead and read the title in, and then I think Chuck or Teresa will give a very brief presentation of the changes to the application. It's proposed ordinance number 22-013, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 3449 as amended to provide for a modification to plan unit development PUD zoning to allow an apartment complex with a maximum of 211 multifamily dwelling units on approximately 12.07 acres generally located south of Lake Miriam Square Shopping Center, north of Lake Miriam Drive, east of South Florida Avenue, and west of Lakeland Highlands Middle School, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Good morning. For the record, Chuck Barmy with Community and Economic Development. We do have representatives from the development team that's also in attendance today, so they may have additional things to add in terms of details. But following up on the April 4th continuance of the Lake Miriam apartment zoning issue or zoning item, the applicant has provided us with an updated plan that reflects a number of the changes that were discussed at the initial hearing. The first is that the unit count for the overall development has been reduced from 244 multifamily units to 211 units. There has been an increase in the number of on-site parking spaces related to the apartment community as well. And in fact, the spaces now, as opposed to being right at the Land Development Code minimum requirements, now exceed the minimum requirements by 56 parking spaces. And so there certainly has been movement on that front. The 2 4-story buildings within the development site have been modified so that they're now 3-story. So the entire development is 3 stories in height. So the overall height has been reduced from 54 feet to 43 feet. And there has been a widening of the sidewalk internal to the development site along the east side of the drive aisle coming in off of Lake Miriam into the shopping center, as well as along the Lake Miriam Drive frontage. That sidewalk width increase is going from 5 feet to 8 feet. And that is to provide enhanced safety and enhanced access to next door. Just recalculating the impact fees that would be generated by the city and county, or for the city and county, we're looking at $717,000 just in terms of city and county transportation impact fees. That is still a little over $333,000 in excess of what is currently, or what would be calculated for a retail development on this site. We have also integrated in the condition that was presented back in April as well, related to the buffer along the eastern property boundary adjacent to Christopher Oliver's property, and so we have incorporated that into the revised ordinance. So in conclusion, we do have a reduction in unit count from 244 to 211. That means that the density is now down to 17.5 units per acre. Down from 20 units per acre. Parking is in excess of the Land Development Code requirements by a considerable amount, by 56 spaces. Building height has been reduced from 54 feet to 43 feet. The AM and PM peak period project traffic distribution has been reduced by 28% and 20% respectively. And again, just as a reminder that this that this project does not create failures on Lake Merriam Drive. Those failures exist at the Florida Avenue intersection as well as along the segment of Lake Merriam between Cleveland Heights and Florida Avenue. In terms of the second part of the direction from the City Commission back in April, we have had, I think, very productive conversations with the county and the school district regarding our options to improve Lake Merriam Drive between Cleveland Heights and Florida Avenue. What's shown on the screen here is an exhibit developed by Ryan Lesenby in the city's Public Works Department that shows what a cross-section could look like in this area. Our focus at this point in terms of providing the most meaningful short-term benefit to improving operations of Lake Merriam Drive is to construct an eastbound left turn lane at the Lake Merriam or the Lakeland Highlands Middle School eastern driveway, which is shown right here. The way the current road is laid out is that you do have an additional asphalt leading up to the Cleveland Heights intersection that serves an eastbound left turn lane there. Liberty Lane has a little left turn lane to serve it, but as you start to head west, the roadway tapers down to the two-lane configuration to the west, and so providing a three-lane cross-section in this area is important. It is a good way to improve operations of this section of roadway. We have received confirmation back from the school district that they will be unable to move up the dismissal time for the school. We were hoping that that would be part of the mix to be able to even lessen traffic on that overlap between school dismissal and the PM peak, but that is not an option at this point. And there has been a discussion about the property on the south side of Lake Merriam Drive within the county, and it is being marketed at this time for a church and a school serving 72 students. There is room to expand, and we do have a question into the county planning staff to see if that's something that's right, or if there would be a zoning action that would be required that would engage us in the process. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts related to Lake Merriam Drive itself. Those are issues that are separate from the zoning action that we're talking about today, but are important in terms of showing how we're trying to address mobility in the Lake Merriam Drive corridor. And so with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions from commissioners at all? Comments? All right, Commissioner Reed.
You know the mix.
I will turn that over to the applicant.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Pardon me? I'll get with you after the meeting. It's not reported right now.
Oh, okay. And just for clarification, that's the bedroom mix?
Bedroom units, okay. What was the word, so we know? What's the word?
I'm good.
Yeah, no,
I think he
what
was
is the word?
asking for the bedroom mix for the units.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
My apologies.
So this will come back for public hearing on June 6th in consideration of final action.
Thank you. Then you continue on, sir.
Okay, catch up here. The next item is proposed resolution number 22-023, and that is for action this morning. It is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, relating to the City of Lakeland defined contribution plan, restating the plan, making findings, providing an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve in a second.
Second.
Second, all right. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or question by the audience? This is a roll call vote. Commissioner McLeod?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously passes.
All right, the next item is a proposed fire protection agreement with Polk County that Jared Simpson's going to present for us.
Good morning again, Jared Simpson with the City Attorney's Office. This is our fire protection agreement with the county to provide fire service to the unincorporated areas of the city adjacent adjacent to the city, excuse me. We previously in 2017 entered into a 5-year agreement with the county. In exchange, we would get a portion of the fire fee assessment. That 2017 agreement started at 55% and then escalated up to 68% at the end of that term, which is now expiring. And we're proposing a new 5-year agreement, which would have 65% of the assessment Both parties can terminate within 90 days written notice, and the agreement can also be opened up for renegotiation in the event that there's a change in fire fees, a new fire station is constructed or brought online, or the service levels change for either party. The agreement also modifies some of the boundaries of the area. I don't think we have a map comparing them, but the chief is here and he can explain in detail some of the changes that have been made to those areas where we're providing service. With that, we're recommending that this be approved.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right, and a second, and discussion, Commissioner Walker.
Chief, could you share with us those areas that have I guess, been modified or changed or extended? I know with the county having, especially out north, Lakeland area, having 2 new fire stations out north. Have there been any, I guess, changes for as what Mr. Assistant City Attorney was sharing with the change in the map and where it's going to be, how we land there?
Yes, sir. For the record, Doug Riley, Fire Chief. And I didn't bring it with me to put on the overhead, but there should have been a map attached to that. Okay. So in our current agreement that's set to expire, or that will expire with this, it was going to expire September 30th. We covered areas under the OPA contract, mostly west, a little northwest, and a little piece southwest, and then we have some up in the northeast that's covered by Station 6. So the county opened the 2 new stations, the one at Kathleen and Duff, and also one at Sutton Road and Galloway. The station on Sutton Road and Galloway is now within 5 miles of all those areas that we were covering west, northwest, and southwest. So they're basically taking that back. They have coverage. They're close enough. They can cover that without our assistance now. So that part of the OPA agreement, it will go away. We're going to continue to cover the north and the northeast. They have no plans in the foreseeable future, probably in the next 5 years, of doing anything over there. Their development now is going out further in the county. They have no plans for that area right there. So we'll continue to cover that. There is a piece north, Socom Loop, way up north, that we had a modified agreement with, where they paid us 15% of their fire tax, but it was modified because we're not covering it completely for them. What they did was they entered an agreement with us, an automatic aid, so to speak, that if there was a fire or a fire alarm in that area, we would send 1 engine and 1 engine only to supplement their system. And so what we're doing with this contract, we have a similar situation south of the airport, because we get a fire down there in Morgan Creek and Town Park and those, Riverside and all that new development down there. The cavalry's coming, but we got to go around the airport. So to help us with those response times, we're going to enter into the same agreement with the county that they'll send an engine from Yule Road, hopefully if they're in the house, or the next nearest engine, to all fires and fire alarms to that area. And so that'll be a wash. They'll provide that, and we'll provide that service. It'll be a wash, and it'll be a true automatic aid agreement. So that's the agreement moving forward.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation,
Yes,
Chief.
sir.
Any other questions by commissioners? Any by the audience? This is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you, sir. That brings us then to utility, and we actually are at 8C2 because of the 8C1 was consent, and that is the Trenois agreement.
Good morning, Ramona Siriani for the City Attorney's Office.
Morning.
The first item that we have is an agreement with Trenois Incorporated. This is for a precast concrete trench at the McIntosh Power Plant. With the demolition of units 1, 2, and 3, we're going to have to move some electrical supplies from those units and repower them to other locations. This particular precast concrete trench will be approximately 40 inches wide by 16 inches deep and also 800 feet in length. Upon evaluation by staff, it was deemed to be the most cost-effective and timely way in order to have that necessary power supply to install these underground trench systems. The precast concrete trench will be installed and is rated to withstand 35 pounds per axial of vehicle traffic, and also can be accommodated to adapt to any future changes without having to provide for additional excavation. The city's purchasing department approved Trenois as a sole source supplier. Trenois, upon your approval, will design and supply the materials for the precast concrete trench. They're scheduled to be delivered to the plant in June of 2022. Once they're delivered, the city will go out for issue a bid for a general contractor to install that precast concrete trench. The total cost for the precast concrete trench is $177,840. That is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget, and that also includes all shipping and delivery costs as well. And we would ask for your favorable approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All right, discussion by commissioners? Any discussion or questions from the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Item 3.
We have the agreement with Powell Electrical Systems for medium voltage switchgear lineups for the McIntosh project. These particular medium voltage switchgear lineups are electrical switches or breakers that are used for the power distribution to control, protect, and isolate electrical equipment. Those switchgear lineups will actually be connecting to the 6 RICE engines that are being procured from MAN, which you previously approved that. Once these are connected, they'll send power to the substation as well as various transformers for plant auxiliary loads. March 7th, the city's purchasing department issued an invitation to bid. We received a number of bid responses. Powell was evaluated by not only city staff, but our engineer, Sargent and Lundy, for the project, and determined to be the most responsible, lowest cost bid price that came in at $1,064,987. However, following a review of the proposal in conjunction with Sargent and Lundy, it was deemed that the city specifications required some additional minor tweaks, which actually increased the price to an amount of $24,239 to Powell's total bid, for a total cost of $1,089,226. That cost is included in Lakeland Electric's budget for the RICE project, which was funded through the issuance of a revenue bond that you also previously approved. We'd ask for your favorable approval of this item as well.
Is there a motion to approve a switch allowing
Move for approval.
to supply electricity?
Second.
Second. Great. And discussion by commissioners. And any from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We look so forward to that installation.
Yes.
It's going to be exciting. Thank you for your work on that. That brings us to the audience portion of the meeting. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to come forward? Just state your name, please. You can come to this center mic if you'd like. And you have 5 minutes. All right. You can take whatever is ideal for you.
Okay, my name is Bill Wheeler. I'm here about the Lake Miriam project. There have been a lot of concessions made. One question I had was, it be possible to get the conclusion that y'all had up on the screen, a copy of that?
Sure.
Okay, and the main issue to me is still compatibility. I think you can make all the concessions and changes you want. It's still not going to be compatible. The focus seems to be right there at South Florida and Lake Miriam. That Lake Miriam corridor affects neighborhoods from South Florida Avenue to Lakeland Highlands Road. I have been on that road virtually every day, and it can take me 15 minutes to go from Loose Road to Cleveland Heights, and then another 10 minutes to get to Florida Avenue. I know that's not going to be a fault of the complex because it's already a failing road, but you're not doing anything to solve that. You are making some road designs, which are positive, I think, but I just still feel it's not compatible and not taking into account the overall effect, not just that immediate area right there. and that's my big concern. That's still a safety factor, no matter what you do with kids walking those sidewalks, crossing Lake Miriam Drive. It's just a big concern, and I'll be back on June 6th.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments from anyone in the public? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners.
Good morning.
I do have a handout for the Commissioners. Nice to see you again this morning. In my life, I've worn an awful lot of hats. I've had three careers.
State your name, please. I'm sorry, that's my fault. Can you please state your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy Kaler, Jalbert, and I live at 1202 Westlake Parker Drive. And as I was saying, in my lifetime, I've worn a lot of hats. I'm old enough to have had 3 careers. And, but today, I stand before you as a resident of Lakeland, as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, as a chaplain, but most importantly, as a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and a very concerned citizen. The handouts that I've given you are photos of just a few of the families with babies that strolled along the shoreline in the past day in front of my house. This is one of the same areas where the hunters blasted away at the ducks last January, and where the law says that they have the right to hunt from 30 minutes before sunrise all day long until sunset, every day during duck season. As a result, I'm here to speak on behalf of the families who have babies, some vulnerable of the ones that use that fitness trail. The joggers that were present the morning of the hunts were able to detour quickly and go up a side street when they saw the gunfire and heard it. The third picture on that page there is of a mother who has not only 2 babies in a stroller, 2 toddlers in a stroller, but a brand new one strapped to her chest with a halter. There's no way she would have been able to avoid the type of action that we saw in January. My concern is that the fitness trail was donated by the homeowners, and that it was designed and constructed by the City of Lakeland and promoted as a safe place to walk, to skate, jog, ride bikes and segways, and walk our babies. I believe that the danger is real. I've always said it's a safety issue. We've already seen that urban hunting on our lake has killed more than just ducks. That was evidenced this past January when a snail kite was also killed during the hunts. This past week, one piece of good news is that several of us residents did meet with Travis Thompson, who's a Winter Haven resident who also is a hunting guide. And we tried to come up with ways that we thought we could keep our neighborhoods safe. And we came up with 4 things that we think are possibilities to help reduce the danger of stray shot hitting somebody using that trail. Number 1, the city can better handle the cattails that are along the shoreline so that there's fewer places for the ducks to nest and fewer places for the hunters to hide. Number 2 is that the neighbors can try to stop the ones that are feeding the wildlife. And I just, as an aside, might say that they're actually just putting out bird feeders, and the ducks are coming to the bird feeders. And then spokespeople like Mr. Thompson, who have the ear of the hunting community, I've asked him to pray about this. Ask him if he can push back on some of these duck forums that I've been monitoring, where they're threatening to retaliate this coming September by hunting the shores of our lake, Lake Bonnie, and Lake Hunter. I believe that Mr. Thompson is going to give that some consideration, and I'm happy about that. One other thing he recommended is that we can ask FWC to actually post an agent along our shoreline during the next duck season to ensure that the illegal activity that we witnessed, the rallying of the ducks along the shoreline, would be discouraged. And I just had an afterthought this morning. I read that President Biden has asked that municipalities use some of the COVID relief funds to actually pump up some of the criminal Policing, yes, and I'm wondering if that couldn't come into play here somehow. With this fitness trail being so close to the shoreline, if we could not have a better or police presence in our neighborhood. But tomorrow night, we have a neighborhood meeting, and usually Commissioner Reed will attend. I'd like to ask all of you to attend because this is going to be the #1 topic, and I understand that representatives from the Lake Hunter and Lake Bonny neighborhoods are also going to be there because they are concerned. The only way I see that we can ensure that people in our neighborhood are safe 365 days a year is for the city to approach AFWC and ask for a restricted hunting area. I know that we have something in process with the state attorney, and I don't know where that is, but that's what we'll be doing a petition for tomorrow night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any commissioners that can go tomorrow night or are interested in going? Commissioner Reed, are you going?
I go, yes. May I have another question? Did you attend the Black and Blue invitation that guy submitted?
No, we actually rescheduled that, and we met at Starbucks.
Rescheduled.
Because I didn't know if they would invite him to go to the neighborhood associated meeting.
They've got it, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Bob.
Thank you. I can't attend the meeting, but I did, Ms. Kaler, I wanted to thank you all for meeting with Mr. Thompson and somebody from the hunting community. I had somebody who I go to church with who's part of the neighborhood association who initially, when she heard about the meeting, I think was a little skeptical and said, "What do you think this will resolve the issue?" And I said, "I don't know." But so far, the communication has only been from the neighborhood association, the hunting community toward the commission. And I feel like it's a start for the two groups to sit down and talk to each other. So I'm encouraged by that, and I appreciate you all just being willing to sit and meet and hear their perspective, and at the same time, allow them to hear your perspective.
Yes.
I think it would be a good thing, too.
Excellent comment.
Yeah.
And just with respect to the meeting tomorrow night, unfortunately, it's not as simple for the commission to come to a meeting like that because of sunshine law requirements,
So I could go, but if he's going to be there, I think that represents us, and it's not a lack of interest.
And it's his district area as well, so.
And it is his district as
Yeah.
well, and his lake as well. So,
I know we've had several commissions there meetings at the past. I mean, it's not, they've been there. We never discussed, we just discussed public issues. But this, I guess this would be one that would be an issue.
it's certainly an issue the city's involved in.
he's more sensitive to this one. So if that's all right, but I will make sure I follow up on it as well.
And we've also invited the duck hunters to attend.
Good. Hey, listen, collaboration is by so far the most effective way for us to be able to work.
Communication.
So we appreciate everything you're doing in that regard for communication.
Thank you for everything you're doing also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other audience members that would like to speak? All right, that brings us to mayor and members of the commission. I have none, so I'm going to start with Mr. Walker. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all again to my colleagues. I was out, as you all know, at a Risk Information Sharing Consortium conference dealing with National League of Cities, and as a Florida delegate at a national conference like this, I was pleased to be part of that. I guess you call the Florida representatives that were there. And I can tell you that the state of Florida, I think, have one of the best delegation and attendees to the national meetings. And you seem that because of the things that we find ourselves involved in here, protecting our local decision-making authority with our city, towns, and villages is so important to us in Florida. And we have been replicated with the models that we use to support that. So at this particular conference, two things that came up that was really very sensitive about what's going on in our country, and especially so with hearing what I think her name was Ms. Judy there, mentioning about having meetings and talking and being able to come together and reason. And one was having to do with reclaiming civil public engagement. Reclaiming civil public engagement, and that's because we're finding a lot of our councils, city councils, etc., becoming so much argumentative, and they're not willing to talk and be able to share and understand. Well, hey, maybe I come from a different part of the fabric, but you don't. But listen to what I have to say, because hopefully after what I have to say, what you share, certainly be appealing, so we could come to a reasonable decision. And that's one of the things that we heard in this meeting on last week, that we're finding across the country that the civil engagement, the civil public engagement has lost its flavor. And folk are not talking and not sharing and don't want to hear what other folk have to say, and especially so when it comes to situations regarding their particular communities. But some of the, of course, the things that came out of that was that how we need to understand each other, we need to examine what's being said, share agreement, collaborate, as we just encouraged what we just heard from Ms. Judy and that situation there on the park and all with the duck hunting situation. Be able to talk and share. Hopefully we can reason together and come together with a sound decision. So the other thing was that, the second thing was that we're finding in our country is that we're finding that there's an all-time low when it comes to hiring of law enforcement. All-time low, whether it's because of situations that are going on or have gone on in our country with law enforcement and the morale issue among those in that particular occupation or skill set. We're finding cities around the country just not having, finding themselves having to have vacancies and having to deal with the all-time low of hiring of law enforcement. So that's a critical concern, of course, that we have. I'm thankful, as I heard these particular subject matters coming to before me, I can say here in our city, and I share that, well, I believe we still have civil discourse in Lakeland. We're still able to share, able to come together and talk, even though we have our differences of opinion. At least we can come to reason and come together as we would. And hopefully, with knowing that we've had some, I call morale issues or having a hiring situation with our law enforcement, we found that we're coming back, to some fruition with that as well. So thank you again. I appreciate the time to get away and be able to share as I do and bringing back some things that will help us, of course, here in our community as well. Secondly, I'd like to announce that the 7th annual community walk and run Save Our Children campaign. It will be held this coming Saturday, I understand. As a flyer been disseminated and been around. I think each of us probably got a packet from that group that's coming up this coming Saturday from 10 to 2 at Simpson Park. And I want to make sure that we share that accordingly. And I wanted to share too, lastly, among my colleagues, that I know as we begin to look at our budget, as we move forward here in the next couple of months, looking at things and how we, the dollars that we receive from the ARPA funds and all, I still have a reservation about how we can best still support small businesses and how we can align ourselves to help support them. I think even though there's some, as been indicated, bouncing back, I still there's some that still need to be supported as well moving forward. So I would like for us to have more dialogue about this, especially so. Thank you.
I'm going to hitchhike on 2 of your points. One is LPD. I want to just thank Chief Garcia for the great leadership that he provides to that department, the stability that you provide to our city for safety. Thank you so much. When we read about so many other things, we're so grateful for where we live.
Grateful.
And on the ARPA funds, we have the ability to take a look at that once we know all the rest of the impact mix. And so I'm encouraged by your comment. Commissioner Madden.
I'm good for today.
Wow, commit.
Oh, okay. You didn't have anything to say?
Go ahead.
Lord have mercy.
Time for you.
Yeah, I was going to relax here for a while. 2 things briefly. I know we did the things on the Monarchs, which was a great thing that I think we're doing. I guess we do something for bees as well, because I know they're catalyst to our production of food and stuff. They're again in the past, and I didn't know when to bring it up. I talked to Bill a little bit about it, but I would like to have some discussion about possibly removing fluoride from our water treatment.
The point was removing fluoride from the water.
From our water treatment. I know there's a lot of studies coming up in this. They found it may be a cause of ADAH, for kids between 2 and 17. And we could maybe have a little discussion on that. I've talked to Bill, he said it's easy to do. It was just calls a proclamation from us to do it. And I think we spend only about $50,000 a year in doing it. But there again, I'd like to have the discussion of some sort potentially before.
So there are cities that do fluoride and there are cities that don't, correct?
Right.
Any thoughts there, sir?
Only that, I mean, the vast majority of public water systems do. However, it is a, like many topics that come before the commission, it is a deeply divided conversation. I've experienced in other cities the same conversation. There are groups that are advocates for and against, and so there's a lot of science involved, and we can certainly have, you know, some of our technical staff available to provide some context to that discussion.
Might be a presentation, we could do it in an agenda study. You know, if you
Be a short one, wouldn't have to be in depth, I don't think. But
just an overview.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, all right. All right, you get to wrap it up, Commissioner McLeod.
So Saturday morning is the Lakeland Police Foundation Fallen Heroes Memorial 5K. I usually run that, and at the last meeting when Chief Pacheco was here, I said I was going to be there. I forgot Aaron and I are out of town this weekend, so I'm looking for someone to represent. You don't have to run, you can walk, but it is a great event. The medals are very well done, and turnout is good. It's a meaningful event to be part of. So if you're out there and you can walk or run and be part of that 5K early Saturday morning, I think it starts at 7, Chief. So it'll be a good event. Thank you for everybody who works behind the scenes to put that together, because there's a lot of work that goes into putting on a successful race.
You should have had Commissioner Music here.
That's what I was hoping for. I hear I don't think he's available either. So I know a lot of people are out of town.
I am as well. Yes. All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.